Conspiracies, government cover-ups, Earth mysteries, monster cryptids. Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV and welcome to this, the 84th reply to comments video. 84, my goodness me, we're getting on, aren't we? Yep, this is the video in which I reply to your comments, as the title kind of gives it away, doesn't it? A bit of a spoiler there in the title. And now the reason I make these videos is because I feel obliged to reply to the comments people leave me. You, the viewers, leave me a lot of very, very interesting comments, and some of them are long, detailed, thought out, and asking me direct questions, raising direct points and criticisms or comments on what I've said. So I feel obliged to reply. I don't have time to reply by text though. I did in the early days when I was a less popular channel, but as time goes on and I've gained more viewers, I find I have far too many comments to reply by text to. Even in this post shadow banning days, I still get enough viewers for that and enough comments. Now you might think to yourself, well, this is a bit pointless, Ben. There's no point making this 9-hour video just to reply to one comment. Well, there's the thing. First thing, you don't have to watch all 9 hours of the video, because under every comment I'm replying to, I will put a comment myself and reply to that comment saying, thanks for the comment, it'll be answered approximately within, and I say first hour, second hour, third hour, fourth hour, fifth hour, etc., of the upcoming reply to comments video. That will be the reply you get. It will tell you exactly within an hour when your comment is going to be replied to. So the maximum you have to listen to or watch is an hour. I say listen, put it on in the background while you're doing dinner. Another reason you don't have to watch an entire 9-hour video is because my reply to comments videos are a lot shorter than they used to be. I used to do them every couple of months. Now I do them every 2 to 3 weeks. So there. They very rarely stretch beyond 4 hours now. And another reason for doing these reply to comments videos is I enjoy doing them, and what's more, you, the viewers, seem to enjoy them as well. I know a lot of you watch them all the way through. Right, to clear up the question that's on all your minds, what's that behind you, Ben, on the wall? What have you put there to try and cover up the missing paint? Well, that's actually my certificate from the Rendlesham Forest tour, and if you want a quick closer look at it, you just have to go to the video I made about the subject. So that's sorted out. So, with no further ado, let's get down to it, shall we? As David Icke says, let's get down to it. Reptiles run the world. No, they don't. All right, so let's get down to it. Here we go. All right. And you know what? I haven't actually started the timer yet, so I'm just going to go to 57 minutes and start, because I've been rambling for 3 minutes beforehand. Okay. Right then, guys, so on to the comments section. Right. Going back to reply to comments 83, we have Cole Costello, who says, first, yay, get in. You're well done, Cole. Cole Costello, your tinfoil hat is on its way. Gary Robinson says, evening, mate, pride and dignity. Evening to you, Gary. Hope everything is all right with you. And Jam Noise says on reply to comments 83, third, hi bro. Hi Jam Noise, how you doing, Soul Sister? Third indeed, the bronze tinfoil hat is on its way to you right now. And we have now Shelley. We now have Shelley Northwest on reply to comments 83. I know you sent me some emails, Shelley. I haven't actually read through them all yet. I'm sorry about that. Hi Ben, I was hoping you went into your email before. Right, I have seen your emails. I haven't quite got through them yet. I'm sorry about that. Before these, where I explained that seeing people batter you triggers my flashbacks. These can happen in the nervous system, bottom up, not the top down from the mind. Automatically, if I see the hatred that precedes death or killings of family and others, my nervous system sees you as being targeted and in danger. Oh, thanks, Shelley. I appreciate you caring about me. I really, really do. You know, I have got, and you say here it's not that you have a thick skin. You know what I was going to say, doesn't it? Yeah. It's that my body is disabled by these things. Lots of adrenaline simply floods the body and then takes days to come down. There's ways of shortening that, but it's work. Flashbacks can't be stopped by being rational or thinking your way out of them, because it's the lower nervous system, not the mind. Thoughts and morals, top down. Normally this is a bit much for me to explain or share with strangers, so please forgive the awkward intensity. That's all right, Shelley. That's all right. I'm just hoping to be understood better instead of isolating as much as I normally do. To speak at all is usually to be very misunderstood or to take me for the bad guy because I must have either crappy principles or self-awareness, or I'm just mentally undisciplined, sketchy, shabby, a person to avoid. I don't think that. I don't think that, Shelley, at all. Flashbacks are closer to, say, epilepsy or Parkinson's. Hearing the insults, especially in the Apollo detectives, is like sitting in a strobe with a strobe light behind you, and I'm the epileptic. That's the best analogy. Anyway, I'm okay. I'm not asking you to drop the axe on these lads. I'm just explaining what's been happening on this end. I'm not thinking you're odd for enjoying debate or more or less being fine, and you have good judgment. I was originally just telling these two they are out of line, but then the flashbacks kicked in. Sorry about the extra comments, and thanks for replying respectfully. No problem, Shelley, and I appreciate you clarifying that with me. I recommend not reading that comment. I appreciate that you have this empathy. It's a very valuable thing. And it's very rare. But as an empath myself, I know that it can be a very just self-destructive thing to have, and there's times when I wish I didn't have it. But I do, I recommend perhaps not reading those comments or avoiding comments by certain people. That's understandable if you do that. And Shelley says, P.S. I'm still at the beginning here. It may take me a bit to listen all the way through, but I will. Take care now. Thanks, Shelley. And I will. And it's take your time with it. And I appreciate you watching despite all that. A crafty nihilist says here, I was wondering if you realise telling us things about some kid being beaten up has a visceral and triggering effect on us, more so than anything Mumbling's ever said. And Shelley says here, I followed Ben since 2014, but always from the shadows because it's nearly automatic that if I have any flooding in front of others and explain something that pinch too much, it's prejudged without understanding the disability, and I'll hear this sort of thing you cited. Excuse me. Which is basically an excuse for not wanting to bother or learn with or learn of others. I would run into intolerance based on prejudice. The irony is that all you have to do is mention that must have been hard or show me something and the flooding stops. That's just helping others to be comfortable and less likely easier than trying to tell me I have a morals problem, so go away, brackets. And I can't argue a negative. You had me figured out before I was ever going to speak or self-advocate. I'm just hoping to say this clearly, it matters. And Shelley also says, my drives were isolation, not poor character, as you conclude. But like how the deaf person might need an earpiece to engage with others, I need some safety or assistance with my nervous system. Some trauma-informed people around me that can help clarify what is and isn't going on. And frankly, you can maybe explain this for you so that you don't come in and start making personal value judgments that, quote, even the worst is better than you, unquote, kind of stuff. I'm taking the time to type this out because you should fix your misunderstanding. The planet isn't for your comfort or maintaining status quo groups like the balance as it is. I think you can learn and stretch and get out of your comfort zone in order to help others have some measure of inclusion. Trauma is informed. Again, trauma is not a character or moral problem, or else I wouldn't be trying to address ethics. Ethics are social necessities, not luxuries for those with physical problems around trauma. I'm not being awful here or somehow out of line, just different from you. And yet, I already know full well disabled people can be boring and fighting is more fun. Still, you don't toss people because the assumptions can be perfectly socially acceptable. I'm sincerely sorry for being so long here, but I just kind of think I'm worth the time. I'm not packing a bunch of double standards here without equal thoughtfulness towards you. David is another story because he leaves me with needing to get pushback, and that isn't a belief in offensive aggression or wacky thinking. It's me dealing with a guy who's obviously is trolling here. That's a sideway, and There's other things I think by the Crafty Nihilist which they may have deleted. I haven't seen them here. That's a. Okay, I think this is becoming a kind of argument between Shelley and the Crafty Nihilist, and I think I don't think I'll read this out. I think Crafty has deleted most of their comments here, so I'll leave it there. But thanks, Shelley, and thanks very much, Shelley and the Crafty Nihilist, for that. Reply to comment 83, Shelley Northwest says here. Yeah, I stayed away from David because I don't believe he has the mental training or boundaries to stay inside those lines. Boundaries don't come out of the Marxist headspace, which I just got done telling him. Why would I then think he could engage with anything other than a never-ending changing of the goalpost, dance and jig? He needs to start meriting a fair shake from people and me, change and grow, not ask for a fair shake while practicing exhaustive measures towards others. One of these days he may just run into a disabled chick that isn't going to do his jigs thread after thread. I'll probably just snicker at him in the wings as he's being roped by Ben. You're already doing that, Shelley. And yes, we have a soul. This is the heart centre that he's even offered by me comes from his feelings things aren't right with natural law. He's owed respect his felt birthright, that care he's craving and will eternally. And he does have that birthright. He does deserve respect. But so do Ben and I. We all are coded in the heart by these laws that also bear testimony that we are to learn and achieve them with each other. His Marxism mocks even his own unquenched need for love and betrays him. He needs to exist materialistically in the matrix to get what he's looking for. That is love. Marxism isn't the answer, it's the cope. A way to try and muscle respect without knowing we have to give it. The point about Marxism is very interesting because Shelley, Marxism appeals to it's a law. I talk about this actually in Roswell Rising. I don't know if you've read that yet. That it's an enticing lure for certain people. I go into it in more detail, to be honest, in Roswell Revealed, the second book of the trilogy. For certain kinds of people, it can be a solution to those in poverty. It gives a reason why it's a false reason, but it's still a reason why they're poor. It explains why they're poor, falsely, but it's still an explanation. And a possible solution, what they believe is a solution. It can ease the conscience of people born into more privileged backgrounds, as my character Julian Spencer. And it can be ways of easing the guilt if you are born into a privileged position, a privileged background, and yet you have too much empathy just to shrug your shoulders and say, well, I'm all right, Jack, and get on enjoying it. David Smith says here, I never got that reply, as Ben would say, rhetoric and no argument. I don't know if that's fair there, David. I must say I didn't quite understand all of what Shelley said here, but anyway, I'll carry on here. David continues, if we have souls, it should be easy to prove. Let me know when you do that. Oh, right, David. Check out The Search for the Soul. It's a documentary. It's called, let me just find it for you. Let me just find it. I won't post a link or anything, but I'll tell you what to Google. Search for the Soul, David Malone. Now, if you're not familiar with David Malone, he's a very well-known filmmaker. Soul Searching it's called. Soul Searching by David Malone. It's a two-part documentary. Each episode's an hour. Soul Searching by David Malone, and there's like literally, it's on Vimeo. It's actually someone's put it up on Vimeo, which is nice. Let's see how many others are here. I'm just quickly looking at this particular channel. Yes, both episodes are there, episodes 1 and episodes 2. So yeah, do check that out. So Soul Searching David Malone. There's actually another one called The Search for the Soul. I've got a book, actually. I think I showed it to you, The Search for the Soul. David, I actually discussed the book The Search for the Soul in my review of the film The Discovery, if you remember my video of that. So he says here, let me know when you can do that. Well, maybe these videos, there's many others that do, maybe not prove, but they indicate very strongly the soul exists. It's really the only explanation for human consciousness. David continues, I can respect people, but not their beliefs, especially when they're silly stroke harmful. I have the mental capacity to separate those things, whereas it seems you get upset when someone challenges you. Where did I say I was a Marxist? I'm assuming Ben has made yet another crazy claim based on right-wing scaremongering or an inability to address the specific points and just create a label to dismiss a comment. Well, I've never said you're a Marxist, David. You do sound like one in many ways. You say a lot of things here. Shelley replies here. David, sounds like you're upset or bothered with me. Do you feel misrepresented? And if so, how do we amend that? Or should I push across your upset, keep going, and spiral in my own mind without boundary? Should I keep going and flatten you, reducing you to a soulless lump of logic that should be argued and gaslit? What's bothering you here? And it is your birthright, your inalienable rights to be respected for who you are, your own personality, not to be confused with a state-sanctioned identity that switches with every new sanction, losing the real independent thinker. From where you are asserting that you deserve some respect and standards. From where? Question. Is that coming from a natural law you feel in your gut or heart? Or is respect just for those that adopt your ideals you've adopted? And is there any pre-existing rules for rhetoric and debate that can be fairly easily understood and applied? Yeah, those are good questions, Shelley. Those are good questions. We're psychologically analysing David. Does David, I wonder, and David can answer this, feel insecure? Does he feel that he needs something that maybe he didn't get from his parents? I mean, I think a lot of Marxists, Molyneux made this point, a lot of Marxists turn against capitalism because, look, capitalism took their mum and dad away from them when they were babies, things like that. And maybe that's a reason why they turned to it. I mean, I was a trade unionist when I was 18. I mean, I saw through it quite quickly, but yeah, you could see me selling on street corners, selling militant and things like that, going on protests. Yeah. Shelley says, if you're honest, you'll realise you've had this set of needs and respect since you were a babe. In other words, you came in with a set of natural laws coded into you. If your mum didn't hug and feed you, you would have felt it and cried. You didn't need a good set of logic going on and expressed well for your mum to know to love you and help you. When you were older, you didn't need a correct position or identity to be worthy of proper representation or other people's thoughtfulness and responsiveness to you. It's a code known inside you. Yeah, you know, Shelley, I think that's true. I think there are certain, you talk about natural laws, there are certain natural laws and standards of logic that we're born into. We are born with. We don't need, there are certain things we don't need to learn. They're almost encoded into the whatever passes for a hard drive in our brain. And one of those is logic, and one of those is natural logic and ethics. Now, children do experiments when they're babies. You know, I've seen my own daughter when she was a baby. I'd put something on her high chair. She had a high chair with like a little table, a lap table like they are. She'd throw things off them, and a lot of babies do this. This is why they have plastic crockery, so it doesn't break. And the reason is she was doing an experiment. She was seeing what happened when she dropped something off, and she was learning about gravity and things falling. It was an experiment, and the same goes for ethics. We are born, babies are born with a certain ethical standards as well, such as reciprocity, and also they have an understanding of hypocrisy, and no one has to teach them that. In fact, these instincts have to be taught out of us, not into us. I mean, the classic one, which it's the example everyone uses when they discuss this. The father sits his son down one day and says, "Son, sit there, I need to have a very important talk with you." Gets out a cigarette, lights it. son, when you grow up, you must never smoke. It's very bad for you. It makes you smell, and it's bad for your lungs, it's bad for your heart, it's bad for your whole body. And the little boy looks and says, Dad, but you're doing it. And you're doing it. You said it was bad, but you're doing it. And the son, says the father, I know I'm doing it, but look, don't look at what I'm doing, look at what I'm saying, all right? It's very bad and you mustn't do it. Well, but Dad, if it's bad, why are you doing it? Don't ask questions like that, son. Just don't do as I say, not as I do. And no one has to teach that little boy that awareness of hypocrisy, that double standard. He knows it. He was born with it. You have to teach that. Part of what goes on in the education system is teaching children to ignore that and to suppress that natural instinct, the code inside you, as you put it, Shelley. Shelley continues here. If you want to agree upon some standards for not misrepresenting Ben and myself and others, and then proceed further into what are actually just cognitive biases on your part and not reasoned positions, then I will entertain you. Till you grow up and realise our birthrights, you're just going to blast through others' wants and comforts. That, my friend, is a double standard of which I will have to mock. I hope I'll be a gentlewoman, but I'm afraid I'm not real great at moderation with the way you argue. No need respect those with the wrong views and logic, and examine your argument. That is your argument. Like, what are you ever even doing? You should know better. And look up the 12 cognitive biases, the 6 pillars of character. These were basic civics in the school before the commies snuck in and destroyed sound logic and decency. The world is so much grander than merely cycling through cognitive, corrective spelling, biases over and over. Maybe you should explore with Ben a little. What is it really going to hurt? I'm quite happy to deal with David in a cooperative way. I am, yeah. Shelley continues, and you're defending the woke positions which are Marxist at their root, not classical but cultural. All of it rejects the sovereign birthright principles embedded in our constitutions. Instead, it demands conformity to the latest thing, rewarding conformity and oppressing those in the way. Yeah, the cultural not classic is very interesting because Karl Marx himself, I don't think he ever really he went into this area. He talked about class struggle, economics, things like that. I think it was actually in the early 20th century. I think it was Gramsci and a couple of the Italian Gramsci and a couple of other people in the Frankfurt School and these other places that came up with this idea of what they call cultural hegemony and the need to undo it. Yeah, it's I've not actually read the prison notebooks and things like that which Gramsci wrote, but I've heard lectures on it. And I've got a personal issue in this area because my relationship with the Tavistock Institute and someone who was very closely involved with it, and her closeness to me, which I've talked about before. No doubt I'll come back to it. Understand how it leads to overriding people, says Shelley. Don't present it and then expect conformity. When you get people in your face, understand why. And yes, you're expecting to enforce your Marxist standards here that ignore enlightened standards of respect. That's where you're getting this hostility from. Don't go in circles, but ask who, what, why, when, and where these responses are coming from. Get to the bottom of the riddle. Don't just spin and spin. And David says underneath here to Shelley, I'm not upset, Shelley. I'm simply a bit disappointed. Flatten me? I don't quite understand what you mean, but it seems it may be you who's getting upset. You can reduce me to anything you like. I think there's a difference between having no soul and calling somebody soulless. Soulless invokes something more along the lines of uncaring, which I think demonstrably does not apply to me. I can respect everyone, just not all beliefs. I can respect people who are criminals, for example, but that doesn't mean I have to also respect their beliefs about what behaviours are acceptable or not. I try to use logic and reason with a bit of sarcasm now and again. Ultimately, I class myself as a humanist. I don't know of any natural law and only environmental rules that we're born into. I think logic would suggest if you want to keep a healthy family, you need to do certain things to take care of them. We use logic and reason all the time. The behaviours and instincts we have as a species come from many years of evolutionary progress selecting for those traits. Yes, I have a bias for skepticism and critical thinking. If that makes you uncomfortable, I suggest you disengage from directing comments towards me. Um, I don't know. I mean, of course, that's always everyone's options. As the skeptics say on the forum, you can stop posting on this thread anytime you like. Yeah. The commie. Sorry, where are we now? The commies destroy sound logic. Okay, thanks for clarifying that statement. This is David talking now, with such a strong and mature, evidentially heavy comment. Now, that's sarcasm, yeah. Now, about demonstrating souls exist. If you do want to continue avoiding the issue in favour of wishy-washy notions about thoughtfulness, which sounds a bit woke to me, if I'm honest. Okay, Shelley has a very long comment here, and David's all right. This I think has become a personal argument between the two of them, which I won't actually I won't actually read out. David and Shelley, apologies, but I'm going to move on from there. So where are we now? Right, reply to comments 83. Cole Costello says, "It would seem everyone here is more intellectual than me, but I do enjoy your back and forth." Oh, thank you very much, Cole Costello. Yeah, I think I'm kind of an intellectual. I'm kind of an autodidactic intellectual, like so many other people are here. Most of the people I deal with actually are they're sort of like outsiders. I mean, I suppose I'm what you'd call working class. I don't have a formal education, apart from a GCSE in English, which doesn't really count for much. But I've never been the kind of guy who can sit around in a pub talking about football for hours on end, like so many of my peers do. At the same time, I'd never fit in with an academic society because I don't have the qualifications, I don't have the right attitudes and things like that. So this is kind of like a way of getting to meet with people and talk to them, I think. Dark Corners UK says underneath, "I feel the same way often, mate, but enjoy the ride nevertheless." Oh, thanks, Dark Corners. Reply to comments 83. Shelley in Northwest says, "I call what we have going on no Davos capitalism." Or now, I think you mean now Davos capitalism. Davos meaning, yeah, you say City of London and WEF perversion. Yeah, the World Economic Forum has become, certainly in the last few years, it's sort of overtaken the Bilderberg Group in terms of conspiratorial infamy. Although it's been around a long time, it's actually been around over 50 years. But yeah, it's interesting that it has sort of like become exposed now. Shelley continues, "This isn't right in any way or form, but I also consider Marxism a tool of Davos. I'm post all of this, but David Smith. David will not include this and would bring in the endless barrage of straw men and red herrings." "Ben, you teach him logic." I'm trying, Shelley. Yeah, David is big on transference and projection. Someone calls him out, but his own actions have never been defined in his own eyes. He should stop talking right there and think, because, like, good citizens want to know how others feel, but instead he just spirals off into the great blue yonder, chaos without self-rule. First thing you learn in civics is that to have liberty, you must be considerable of self-rule and discipline. Yeah, I mean, I say teaching him logic. I mean, I do get the feeling David actually is not a very logical person. I mean, he's, like all skeptics, he claims to be. He describes himself as a skeptico-humanist. I think, and I agree with that self-description. But I've often found, in my skeptic talk, I go into details about how skeptics actually are not particularly rational people. They are not. They are actually quite irrational, and in various different ways. And one of those is, I think I explained this in the video I did about Skeptic in the North. To see an aggressive dominator of others and say they're winning a debate. And David just seemed to think that, because that's what he said because he's a fan of Matt Dillahunty. He literally said to me that he wouldn't be satisfied with any kind of challenge I put up unless I'd faced Matt Dillahunty. He sounded like Yoda on his deathbed. "You must face Dillahunty. You haven't faced him. No more training do you need. You must face Dillahunty here. All right. And David says here, you talk some nonsense. Where did I say I was a Marxist? What straw man did I use? What red herring? I don't think you're a Marxist, David. I think you may be a cultural Marxist. And things to be a lot of people are cultural Marxists without knowing it. They don't use that term because they don't understand the history of the woke movement. Teaching logic requires an understanding of it. When someone says they've proven a soul exists because they've made a video on it, that is about as far from logical as one can get. Well, David, that's true. Which is why simply making a video about it is not the solution. I mean, I've just provided you with some sources about where you can actually provide a scientific case for the existence of the soul. And there's many different. It's a big area that I'm quite interested in, actually, in the areas of consciousness, will, free will, things like that. I know I've studied everyone from the great mystics to Susan Blackmore on that subject. David continues, almost none of the beliefs expressed in these videos or supportive comments have been shown to be true. You simply really believe in them. Logically, that is not the same thing. Now, David, I think you misunderstand then. I think that's a false assessment. None of the beliefs expressed in these videos or supportive comments has been shown to be true. I disagree. I mean, my entire history of debating with you or discussion with you, if I don't think what we do is debate, is a proposition that is the case. I believe these things have been shown to be true. Not proven beyond all doubt, but still demonstrated to be true. It's not just because I really believe in them. If I really believed in them, I just wouldn't speak to you about it, would I? Because true believers cannot debate. They cannot even bear. They have an emotional aversion to dissent. How am I doing? I'll just keep checking that everything's working all right. It seems to be. Stephen Truthseeker said on reply to comments 83, Ben, I would be careful pulling clowns, lizard people and Loch Ness monsters out of your arse. I'd be careful pulling clowns, lizard people and Loch Ness monsters out of your arse. I will in future, Stephen, because I tell you it was very, very painful. I needed a lot of preparation H after that, I'll tell you. Reply to comments 83, Ben, what's your thoughts on the government passing the online harms bill? Do you see our accounts lasting much longer? Well, at the moment, I think it's not too bad. The reason is because it was passed without the crucial clause, which is legal but still harmful. The House of Lords would not allow it through. And people slag off the House of Lords, saying they're unelected bureaucrats. Well, I'll tell you what, they've saved our. They certainly saved our ass this time. Now, the online harms bill is coming into law without the clause which really gives it the teeth it needs, which is legal but still harmful. What's going to happen, Dave? What's going to happen, though, Stephen, is there is going to be a revision of the law. Probably when the next election happens, which will be probably next year, January 2025 at the latest. We know that Labour have plans to abolish the House of Lords. Or pass it over to the Supreme Court or something like that. When they will try to get the legal but harmful clause in again. And anyone who thinks, well, that's all right, I'll just vote for old Roland Rat then. The Conservatives won't do it. Yes, they will. If the Tories win, exactly the same thing will happen. The only difference basically is Labour. I don't think the Tories will abolish the House of Lords, but they will continue to put pressure on them to pass the online to revise the online harms bill and reform it with the legal but harmful clause in. Now, if that happens, then yes, social media accounts will be obliged to just delete anyone who the government point their finger at and say, I don't like him. They don't need to provide a reason. The government don't need to provide a case anymore. They can dictate online content. Now, the good news is that really, in this day and age, you can never completely delete things from the internet. You can never completely eliminate content online. What they can do, though, is they can completely chase us off all mainstream sites, and a lot of the sort of dissident sites like Gab, Minds, etc. They will probably have to go into the dark web or something, and we'll have to go with them. But like I say, you can never completely eliminate things online now. But yeah, we'll have to jump through a lot more hoops. I mean, hopefully that won't happen. It's not in there yet, Stephen. So don't give up. A straw person says tyranny at the least. Yes, in the least, tyranny definitely. Reply to comments 83. Stephen Truthseeker. The film based on the London Underground, where the guy shouts "Mind the doors." I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of that film either. It's actually called Dark Line, Stephen. It's called Death Line. I found out about it since. And indeed, Dark Corners UK says underneath, I believe the film you're referring to was called Raw Meat, sometimes known as Death Line, starring Donald Pleasence. Yes, Raw Meat was its American title. It was called Death Line in the UK. I think it's from about 1970. Let's have a look. I remember it well. I remember it's quite upsetting. Actually, it's a horror film. It's actually quite upsetting because the cannibal people. Here we are. Deathline, 1972 film. Yeah, it's a horror film directed by Gary Sherman, starring Donald Pleasence. Yes, indeed. Dark Corner says it has Donald Pleasence. Yeah, who's in a lot of horror movies. He's quite good for horror, actually. It's quite a it's an upsetting film because of despite everything you feel I think I felt sorry for the cannibal at the end of it, and I think you're meant to. It's based on an urban legend, which is that some people get lost in the underground and they eventually get stuck down there, and they can't find their way out, and eventually they have children. The children are so used to living down there they feed themselves by eating passengers who go astray. So if someone disappears on the London Underground, it means they've been eaten by the cannibals. Not true, but still, yeah. Neil Peel Paranormal says underneath, my late friend used to talk about this film. If I'm correct, I thought the character said mind the gap. He says mind the doors. Yeah. And Jack says it was great that as a quirky police detective. I think you mean Donald Pleasence, yeah. Stephen, I didn't know there were two versions of this film. Dark Corner, same film, just goes by different names in different parts of the world. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to watch it again because it's brutal, it's gruesome, but it's upsetting too. I mean, it's sad. I mean, if you want to. I think it's emotionally draining, if I remember rightly. If you want a good horror movie set on the London Underground, a much better one is American Werewolf in London, which is not set completely on the Underground, but I think one of the best scenes in the film is on the Underground. I replied to comments 83, Stephen Truthseeker. My timestamp of strange brainwashing chants didn't work. Sorry, weird. Oh, right. Not to worry, Stephen. Hope you get it sorted out. 83 David Smith says, I see Shelley referencing me without replying again. Yes, she seems well balanced, mate. Well, I think sometimes Shelley posts, she has like an opening post addressing David. There's nothing wrong with that, is there, David? Shelley says, yes, David, me and all my flaws is referencing you, quote unquote, just how you misrepresent others. Shame, isn't it? Let me know when you don't need a double standard to cope. David Smith says underneath, NP, Shelley, no problem, Shelley. Let me know when you can back up your claims. Reply to comments 83. Straw Person, that's a good name. Not straw non-binary, is it? Ben, it's been a long time. It's Marky Boy. How you doing? Hey, Marky Boy, is that your new name? Hello, I remember you. Yeah, I remember you. Glad I found this channel again. I heard Mumbling's name pop up on another channel and it prompted me to seek you out again. I've had a busy time, so lost touch, but I'm glad to be back. Well, welcome back, Marky Boy, or Straw Person, as we must call you now. I'm glad you found back, and thanks Steve Mumbling for the brilliant advertising. And a reply to comments 83. Gary Robinson says, here we go. Ben, mate, I'm listening to you discuss comments from David and Shelley in regards to mass immigration, with the argument being that David is not convinced that mass immigration is organised. Yes, we had a debate about that. Yes, I think it is organised. You might remember that a couple of years ago, the mainstream media in the UK and USA picked up on the story that 15,000 immigrants from Haiti suddenly arrived at my city in Mexico. Yes, I do. The city borders Del Rio, Texas. And as you can imagine, the migrants were aiming to cross into the USA. Our city is smaller than the average UK town, so the arrival of 15,000 illegal migrants caused considerable chaos. Yeah, David, the same thing happens here. I mean, the migrants that turn up on the beaches at Dover and places like that, they're immediately put into, some of them put into sheltered accommodation in small villages where they outnumber the population in the village, and then they just wander the streets and they cause trouble. They commit crime, they steal things. Everyone has to lock their doors when they never used to, things like that. He says here, they arrived in this is Gary again, they arrived in a succession of coaches as part of an organised operation that was overseen by a certain organisation whom I would rather not name. Yeah, David, Gary, part of the documentary, it actually showed them crossing from, I think they crossed from one of the countries bordering Mexico in the south, Nicaragua or somewhere. They actually crossed over onto the mainland and then ended up somewhere in Central America. So they moved south first, but then they didn't stay south. They then went north into Mexico and eventually the United States. A number of people I know took food and water to them as they eventually settled under the bridge that connects Mexico and the USA. In conversation, they learned that the entire operation had been organised. They had paid to be taken from Haiti into Mexico illegally, and the organisation had put them on coaches and shipped them to the border. The coach journey took them halfway across Mexico, which means they would have encountered at least 100 or so army and police checkpoints on the road. Not only were they allowed to enter Mexico illegally, but they were allowed past all the checkpoints in order to be able to arrive at my city. My point being that there's no way this could have happened unless the entire thing was organised. Cheers. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all. And since Biden's in the White House, it's pretty. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that his administration is actually supporting the people trafficking cartels. Gary says, P.S. There's also a number of mainstream TV interviews with the Haitian migrants in which they also confirm they'd arrived at the border as part of an organised venture. A large number of them were hospitalised and found to have AIDS, TB and a number of STDs. That in itself is a reason why countries need to reinforce immigration laws properly. Yes, indeed, Gary. I mean, considering that a large number of them are single men, and they seem to have a taste for young, teenage girls. So yeah, or boys indeed. I mean, that's a massive AIDS risk for very young boys. Yeah, and David Smith said, who organised it? What were the circumstances around it? Gary says, it's good questions. I mean, Gary is not going to name the organisation, but okay, it's up to him. And Gary says, that's exactly the question we should be asking, mate. There are only two behind-the-scenes facts that are known. Firstly, the venture was advertised in Haiti as an opportunity to enter the USA illegally for anyone who was interested. And secondly, upon arriving in Mexico, a certain organisation was hired to put them on buses. I would rather not name that organisation, but think of Netflix, Pedro Pascal and Boyd Holbrook, and you'll most likely get the picture. Oh, I don't know who those people are, but Netflix, yeah, no surprise there. Someone had to have been managing all of this, but who and why? Cheers. David Smith says to Gary, I think we're in agreement. I'm still not getting a name, though. Sorry. I'm not saying no criminal organisations are helping, influencing and trafficking people. I'm saying I don't think it's part of some grand conspiracy. It's just criminals wanting to make money and people wanting a better life. Well, I'm sure at one level it is that, at the bottom and the middle layers, but at the top there are people that would have to be orchestrating it at the state level, David. We're talking about in government. Because it takes, for example, power to firstly to try build a wall, like Trump tried to build the wall, but Trump only built a small amount of wall. I think he tried to build more of it, but he only could build a small amount. And then of course, first thing Biden thinks is he pulls it down. He literally, I don't know if he physically pulled down what Trump built, but I mean, he's continued. I think thousands. Currently, the massive border crisis has continued under Biden. Gary says to David, I guess my point was that it looks like someone somewhere is allowing the gangs, shall we say, to get involved in the distribution of the migrants, allowing them to make money, and in doing so, I guess that helps fulfill the plan of redistributing people from certain parts of the world. The roadblocks in Mexico are a good example of an authority making it possible to happen because the criminal organizations would not be able to get the army to let them through. Yeah, exactly. This takes state cooperation and collusion. As with the boats arriving in the UK, for example, it suggests there is a separate dimension of control to all this beyond the criminals, but who knows? Yes, there is a separate dimension. Literally, the government could easily stop these boats landing. They could easily stop them. We've got a border force, we've got UK border agency, we have the Royal Navy, we have the Coast Guard. How on earth does some rubber dinghies get through? Those that survive the crossing and don't sink. David says to Gary, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if bribes are happening, but ultimately you can say the same thing about almost any criminal activity. Now, David, I think it goes beyond that. I think we're talking, it's not just they're bribing, the lower and middle layers are bribing the state to do what they do. The state appears to have a purpose. There's a purpose behind it. I think that purpose there may be several motives. One of them is demoralisation of the population. They're essentially rubbing our face in it. They're saying, look, you may be sitting on the street and with begging for small change, and we could put you in a hotel if we wanted to, because we did during the COVID crisis. We just want to leave you there, and we want to put these people in the hotels right under your nose, so that you can see how little we think of you. There is an element to that, demoralisation. Now, they know that could easily backfire, and it could actually radicalise people into an organised resistance, but they're gambling it. Firstly, they're taking a risk. They're willing to gamble on that. And secondly, they have top psychologists working on ways of preventing people from organising in that way. Our job, I think, as dissident commentators and polemicists, is to make that plan backfire. And then Gary says, you wouldn't believe what's happening at the local level in Mexico. Let's just say the cash doesn't get to where it's supposed to in order to maintain the cities and towns. Yep. It doesn't. They let the city and towns just go to hell. I mean, and as I said, they're doing it to mess with our heads. It serves several purposes, I think. 83, Gary Robinson. Oh, back to Star Wars. Dark Corners mentioned the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi being reminiscent of lady parts, shall we say, and that being a reference to George Lucas and his divorce. I think that's what I think got people saying that, and I think it got into his head a little bit. Hence this ridiculous revision of the Sarlacc. Yeah, I think and Gary says, I think we might be in the same territory as Colin's Star Wars talk here. The original concept for the Sarlacc pit was a huge monster with a head with tentacles coming out of the sand, which was designed by Phil Tippett, who made most of the aliens and creatures in the original trilogy. They scaled it back to the design that ended up in the movie, simply because they didn't have the technology to realise the original concept. The recent TV show, The Book of Boba Fett, actually starts with a shot of the inside of the Sarlacc pit and shows how Boba Fett conveniently crawls out in order to allow the show to take place. Cheers. Yes, I've seen that. It's on YouTube, actually. Boba Fett escapes from... He's one of the few people who actually escapes from the Sarlacc's stomach. And he uses his jetpack to fly out. It's as always a very frightening thing. That's a very frightening scene. But I mean, of course, they decided the original plan was to write Boba out of the entire film series, and then they decided they wanted, because he's such a good character, they decided to bring him back. And I mean, he's been, of course, he's played a big role in the original trilogy. Played by, I forgot the name of the actor. His father, Jango Fett's played by Tamora Morrison, and since then he's always had they've given him a New Zealand accent as a kind of like demonstration, as that becoming kind of canon, things like that. Keith McLaren says to Gary, Piso, name in Latin, means vagina. Piso Flavians wrote the New Testament and the Quran, papal bloodlines, world ownership. Flavians. The Piso family, I didn't know that meant that. But, that's odd, because the Piso family came from the late Roman period, are thought to have been behind the establishment of Christianity as the religion of the Roman Empire. Yeah. Mind you, the Piso didn't write. They couldn't have written all the Gospels, because I mean there's contemporary texts that have been discovered, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, Nag Hammadi Gospels, things like that. But it was clearly created. It was clearly edited to become a state religion. Yeah. 83 Dark Corners says, "Hi Ben, I would be up for attending a HPANWO meetup. Would be nice to meet you all and have a few pints." Oh, it would, wouldn't it? Yes, Dark Corners, indeed. I think that's a good idea, but what I'll do is I have emailed a couple of people about this, and I think it'd be nice to organise privately. Obviously, you can't trust everyone, so it'll be something we'd organise privately. But it'd be lovely to get together with you guys. Sometime around Christmas would be nice. And Dark Corner says, "I'm actually looking forward to the second Steve Mumbling debate." Yeah, me too, if it ever happens, Dark Corners, because right now Mumbling is like, he's shying away from the old issue as if it's a red-hot poker. Let's just see if he actually steps up to the plate. Let's see if he can walk out to the crease. Let's see if he can enter the ring and use whatever other sporting analogy you like, because I'm ready to take him on. 83 Gary Robinson, "Can the proposed HPANWO meeting be in London, or even better, Hemel Hempstead?" Gary, I think probably London is best. Obviously, it'll have to be in a Wetherspoons. It must be a Wetherspoons, because freedom. But yeah, Neil says, "Lay on a burning car for the warm welcome, Gary." Gary says to Neil, "I'm sure I can round up a few Cortinas, no problem." Jack Burns, "Aren't those Hellfires caves near Hemel?" "Yeah, they're in High Wycombe." And Neil actually says it. Yeah, they're in High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire. But yeah. And Gary says, "They are just down the road in the Chilterns, which is a great area to visit, as there are lots of nearby places worth checking out, including Ashbridge and Ivinghoe, etc." Oh, it's a beautiful location. And High Wycombe is this town, very picturesque. It's laid in a very steep valley in the Chilterns, and of course it's the site of those famous caves, and I did do a video there, I remember, way back in 2011. Just before I got kicked out of hospital portering. 83 Keith McLaren, "Good to hear different angles on the subject. Thanks, Ben." Oh, you're very welcome, Keith. Glad you enjoyed it. And 83 Lights Below says, "Christmas get-together sounds like a plan." Yeah, I've contacted you about that, Lights, by email, and I think it's a good idea. Yeah. 83 Keith Smith, "The CCCP are the modern-day fascists." Right, I don't know what that relates to. I mean, I know it's SSSR, it's the Soviet Union in Russian, but do you mean the Chinese Communist Party? Oxford Graffiti, here we go. Neil says, just Neil 7245. "I'm amazed by the artwork. It's a bit supernatural. I'm clueless towards what a lot of it is meaning, yet it is incredibly well done." Thanks, Neil. Yeah, me too. It's really extraordinary. Some of it is really, really extraordinary. Excuse me. Just a bit of a sneeze. I am actually working on Oxford Graffiti 6. I've already shot a few pieces of footage where I found bits of graffiti here and there, which will be out in the next few months. 83 replied to comments 83, and Shelley Northwest says, "How long has Steve Mumbling been quiet?" A few weeks now, Shelley. I have challenged him. He knows I've challenged him. I've emailed him as well. I do have his email address, and he hasn't replied. So I take it that means he is showing the white feather. Come on, Steve. Is that right? Do you not want to take me on? I told you, I'm only one rule I'm just stipulating. It's just leave the moon landings and let's talk about something else. That's all I want to do. Apart from that, I'm fine. Straw Person says, "I popped up on Reverend Simon Sideways the other week." All right. Well, you were on his show. He calls it the Sunday Sermon. um, yeah, he's. I've not watched Simon for a while actually. But yeah, I'd be interested to see that. Reply to comments 83. Tessa 1111. Tiamat, Krypton, Bennu bits have landed not far from me. All right, you must live near that particular place. Where was it? Was it Dugway Proving Grounds or somewhere? I think it's Utah. Their safety capsule landed containing dust from the Bennu asteroid. They covered it with Sontaran uniform, metallic silver plastic, to fly it to a clean room at Dugway Proving Grounds, Utah. Yes, it's the same place they have the moon rock, and I do believe it is real moon rock. It doesn't mean just because I don't believe that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin picked it up, it's still real moon rock. It's going to be studied there. It has to be kept away from the air because some of the chemicals might oxidize, so it's been mixed with nitrogen and put into a sealed container. Alright, Ben Goes on Tour, part 2 of 2, which is still there. 11.6 is part 1, I think, is the questionable one. Popcorn Boxing. Hi, Popcorn Boxing says 11.16 Bugs Matter, Ben. Alright, Jedi, what's this? 11.16 on. This little garden shed structure in someone's back garden. A very comfortable garden shed, though. But, I've opened the door because it's so hot in here. The lights are on. I'm the other pointing the camera the other way, don't worry. Right, Bugs Matter. Oh, there were insects getting in, yeah. Which I was very careful not to harm. I tried to get as many of them out as possible. They were drawn in by the light. New probe. Hey, this is a good old one. This is Shelley Northwest. Ben, hi Ben. Do you know if there's a better recording anywhere of this probe talk? There might be some. There might be some, Shelley. Of the talks themselves, you mean the actual lectures? There are a few. There's my own talk. I think I filmed. I've done about 3 talks for them, and I recorded audio on some of them, and I can't remember whether I filmed them or recorded audio. Yeah. Shelley Northwest. Tony Topping has been doing the deep dives down the rabbit hole to make sense of his experiences. He has, yeah. Tony's now he's going up in the world. He's now all over. He's working on. They're doing a show on Netflix now with him. New probe. Shelley Northwest. Ben, where do you explain that your stepmum was part of Tavistock? That could not have been good. You shared the video explaining your mum had betrayed you at every turn. That was your actual mum, though, correct, not your stepmum. And if it's kosher to ask, how does one become a primary head of Tavistock? Can you maybe reply with a link, or maybe anywhere at Odyssey? I'll find it. Right, Shelley. I have mentioned this a couple of times. I don't think I've ever done a dedicated video about this subject. But maybe I can email you with more details. But it was actually it was actually someone who was not my stepmum. I had my mother. My biological mother, who I lived with for my childhood, she trained as a psychologist when she was in her 30s, and ended up as a counsellor. She ended up working as a counsellor, a psychotherapist stroke counsellor. And when she was on the training course, she met this old lady called Isabel, and she brought her home one day. And I remember this one. I was about 13 at the time. I was a young child. Isabel Menzies Lithe. I just look at her Wikipedia page. Where is it? Here we go. I'll show you her Wikipedia page. This lady here brought this lady home. There you are. You can pause and read that if you want. And pretty soon she was there all the time. It was like she was my step-grandmother. She almost lived with us. And she was an extremely abusive and destructive individual towards me. Not my brother, just me. And maybe I should do a dedicated video about that. Believe it or not, I'm actually working on an article on HPANWO Voice, which I'll send to you when I finished it. which should hopefully give you some more idea. I've managed to find out more things about Tavistock Institute and what they were doing, why they were monitoring certain children, and I have reason to believe I'm one of the children they were monitoring. But yeah, it's something that has really affected me throughout my life. It's haunted me. Yeah, I mean, it's not just that she was nasty. She turned my mother against me, very deliberately, very skillfully, and had the ability to mess with my head. Kind of, what's the word, to twist me up in knots, that kind of thing, you know. Anyway, it looks like the timer has run down, but it's not bleeping. Oh, right, okay. So you got to. That's pretty useless as a timer, then, isn't it? Anyway, I just happened to notice it had run down. So that's the end of part 1, guys. We're back with part 2 very shortly. Okay, guys, on to hour number 2 now. I shall just get the. I've just started. I found another countdown timer, so that's good. Maybe this one will work. And I shall just now grab the second hour thanks for comments template. Well, pardon me. Okay, so let's proceed. Right. We have now reply to comments 83. And TKUK, TKUK, 24302. Let's have a look. What's this? This is a timestamp. Obviously, we live on a finite planet, but you know, there's the universe out there. That's infinite. All right. So, the universe is infinite. How do you know? What else is infinite, Ben? Right. How do I know the universe is infinite? Well, there's the flatness problem. So, for example, I can't remember the details, but they've measured the curvature of space-time in on a four-dimensional, basically on a hypothetical four-dimensional plane, for a fourth spatial dimensional plane, and they've worked out there is no curvature that is detectable, despite the fact that this measurement has become more and more accurate over the years. It's become more and more precise. I think precise and accurate are two different things. And they can detect no curvature. Now, of course, this doesn't prove there's no curvature, but it proves that if there is a curvature, it's far too small to be detectable by this particular method. Then you've got, and so it means that basically if the universe is finite, then it's extremely large. We know that it must be trillions of light years across, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the flatness measurement actually increases in its precision. It's also, you've got to ask. There's also the obvious question is like what happens, because if the universe is finite, presumably it curves in a circle around a four-dimensional space, which means if you keep moving in a particular direction through space, you'll eventually come back to where you started. It would take a long time because it's very, very big, but you would eventually, trillions and trillions of years in the future, you'd come back to where you started, because you'd go essentially in a circle. Same way that if I got up and started walking in a particular direction, and I'd need a boat to get over the sea, obviously, I'd eventually come back to where I started on the Earth. But then then the question is, well, if the three-dimensional universe is finite, what is it? You know, what about higher dimensions? In the same way, the Earth is finite. We know the Earth is a finite size, but what's underneath it and what's above it? And is that finite? And the thing is, that question, obviously we then look up and say, well, we know that the Earth is finite in terms of its surface. We look up and we see the sky, or we look down at the ground and imagine what's going into the Earth. What's down there? Now we know the inside of the Earth is also finite, because we know that. So presumably, if a three-dimensional universe curves around a four-dimensional sphere, that also is a finite size. But what's down there and what's above it? Things like that. The questions relating to the finality, the finite nature of the Earth, apply just as much to the universe. So, really, it's counterintuitive, and I think almost paradoxical to suggest that at some point we're going to reach a point where there are no higher dimensions, and something is just finite, and that's it. Because then in what medium is it finite? In other words, what does that curve around? It must curve around something to be finite. You see what I mean? Which means that the only solution is there is infinity in the universe. What else is infinite, Ben? What else is infinite? Time is infinite, I suppose. You could just keep going on forever. Numbers are infinite. You could count forever. I know the highest actual number we know of is Graham's number, which has, like, I think is so big that you could never use it to count anything, because it's if you counted all the particles, the subatomic particles in the visible universe, it will come to less than Graham's number. So you can never use Graham's number to count anything because it's too big. But then you could just, the thing is though, you could say, well, is that the biggest number? No, because I'll just say Graham's number and 1, and you start again. Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting question though, isn't it? Right, new video. St Helena Airport, Kotlin Island. Nothing as it seems, says. It would seem as though you altogether missed out on the brilliant automotive engineering going on in the early 70s. For example, from 27 himself, the Alfetta. Right, what's this? There's some YouTube links here. Let's have a look. Oh, is it a car? So it's just the page just loading. Just wait for the ads to clear. Okay, right, skip ads, right.
Hello everybody, welcome to number 27, I'm Jack, and this is an Alfetta, right. The family car that drove like a sports car. It was revolutionary. I'm sure many of you believe that it was BMW or maybe even Jaguar with the Mark I that invented this class of car. But you'd be wrong. Today I'm going to be making the case as to why the Alfetta was the first effective sports saloon.
All right, okay. That's very nice. Nice. I've never seen one of those before. I'm guessing it's Italian because of its name sounds Italian. And there's another one here. What's this video? Right, let's have a look. All right, the Alfetta.
Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and this is an
Alfetta. Oh, that's the same video. You've given me the link twice. Okay, never mind. Nothing as it seems. I missed out on the brilliant automotive engineering. Yes, I'm a bit too young to have appreciated it. I certainly didn't see any of those cars. Maybe they didn't export them. I don't know. Right, Kotlin Island again. Gary Robinson says, if it turns out that the airport on St Helena doesn't get enough business, it will soon end up being closed. I've seen this happen in Mexico and Texas, where local airports are opened in places that are 3 or 4 hours drive from another airport. They always end up closing after a few years due to not being busy enough. Cheers. P.S. I reckon I might have just won a tinfoil hat. Oh, you got the first one comment on there, yeah. Well, Gary, I think St Helena Airport might be different because it serves because it serves a very remote island, and the fact that it, like much of St Helena, it is subsidised. It's subsidised by aid from. I was going to say overseas aid. It's not overseas because it's a British overseas territory. So people are saying that St Helena is basically being supported by foreign aid, but St Helena is not foreign. It is an overseas territory. It's much less foreign than the Isle of Man, which has a completely independent government, for example. It's because of its political, economic, and geographical importance. I think the St Helena Airport will simply be subsidised. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't get enough business because, I mean, apparently there's only maybe there's less than one flight a day, apparently. But yeah, it's simply, I don't know who actually owns it. I think it is actually state-owned. I don't know. Right, user says here, Ben, regarding immigration, you did say there are too many brown faces in the UK. I don't think I said that at all. Okay, that is actually slanderous. Now, oh, bless, jam noise is sticking up for me. From this brown face, do me a favour and fuck right off. No one here thinks Ben is a racist. I've known Ben since 2012 or 2011, and he's the most gentle person I know, even when and if we don't see eye to eye or agree on everything. We have maintained our friendship, and I fully support and trust my brother Ben. I've even cooked a meal for him, and he stayed at my house. So from this brown face, please stop your bullshit. Thank you, Soul Sister. Yeah, I certainly didn't say that. I said, I actually qualified exactly what I thought about the immigration issue. I actually stated that on no account should we feel any hostility for any individual. And this is user something or other is a troll, I think. The only reason I'm not deleting your comment is because of Jackie's brilliant reply. So thank you very much, Jackie. Much appreciated. Right, Scotland Island again. Neil Peel says here, East Midlands Airport in the UK, I think, closed for the same reason. Right. Is it closed? It's just right. And Lights Below says, "Is EM closed? When did that happen? Is it closed? Let's have a look." I love Jasper Carrot's jokes about East Midland Airport. They're so funny. Yeah, it's a diddy little airport, isn't it? East Midlands Airport. Yeah, East. This is Wikipedia. East Midlands Airport is an international airport in the East Midlands. There you go, right. Jasper Carrot. This is a diddy little airport. It's the only airport in the world that has a runway with a cattle grid. So now it's still open. It's a user. Okay, hang on a sec. Right. Oh god, what's this about? This is a reply to comment 83. And this is user, what's his name again? David Icke's t-shirts are made in sweatshops by kids in Haiti. Right, this is what was it called? Fruit of the Loom Gate or Gildan Gate. I can't remember what it was. It was Fruit of the Loom, then it was Gildan. Yeah, I remember this. When this point was raised on his forum, the posters were either banned, their posters deleted, or locked and hidden. In fact, the outcry caused the forum to go into one of those down for maintenance breaks, the kind that so often happen when the Icke dynasty has a revolt on its hands. Funny how all the embarrassing information for Icke Inc. has disappeared when the forum came back. Almost as funny as when loads of moderators were sacked when they found out that Icke Inc. had been playing Big Brother by reading people's private messages. They claimed the mods who went missing were either ill or died due to black magic attack. I kid you not, and idiots believed it. Right, user, what's your name? I think you might be the same person who was being racist towards me, or claiming I was racist. In which case I'd get rid of you. But like, I know a lot about this. This happened a long time ago, but I remember it very well. Yes, David actually brought out a line of t-shirts that were made by two companies, Gildan and Fruit of the Loom. Now, these two companies, like most clothing companies, used foreign labour. Now, you say sweatshops. I don't think there was anyone found that they was literally using child labour in sweatshops. But they were I don't think it was Haiti they were made in. I think it was Malaysia or Indonesia. I can't remember. But anyway, people did say to this. I think they were quite right to do this. Actually, they said, David, shouldn't you perhaps use maybe a British-based workers' cooperative or something to produce your t-shirts? And indeed, the forum management basically stopped people talking about that. Now, I actually left the David Icke forum around about 2010. Funny enough, the person I was talking to this was someone on Twitter. Believe it or not, it was Brent Lee, who was also on the forum. The guy who's now a skeptic. And I was saying, the forum went downhill. And you mentioned here that loads of moderators were sacked. They were, and they found out that Icke Inc. had been playing Big Brother. Now, well, firstly, Icke Inc., as you call it, in other words, David Icke's company, David Icke Books, was not playing Big Brother. It was a certain individual who was behaving, I think, in a really terrible way. And indeed, David himself found out that, a few years later, David himself found out this person had betrayed him. But this was a guy who was the admin of the forum. I know some of the people who were mods on the forum. I knew some of them. I knew that they'd just vanished from the forum. I mean, I left soon after that because for that reason. I also think, it would have been. I mean, I never really heard their side of the story, but I was worried when I found out that they were using Gildan and Fruit of the Loom to make their t-shirts. I bought a David Icke t-shirt years before then, I remember, but I can't remember what company made that. So I don't know exactly why they did that. I'd like to hear their side of the story. I think I'm beginning to know. You were sounding familiar, and I think I'm I think I know who you are, but I can't prove that right now. But you will expose. I know you will expose yourself at some point if you are who I think you are. In which case, I'll immediately block you. But I think David has a. I'd like to hear him respond to that, even though I know that his forum admin prevented people from talking about it. He has a right to have his side of the story. There may be a reason why he had to use Gildan and Fruit of the Loom. Right, St Helena Airport, Cotland Island. There's someone called R12345 R12345. Okay, it's a good name. Welcome anyway. I have links to the islands that Ben couldn't remember the name of below, and I use them to drive over when I have to go to another part of the country, and I consider them worthless for other purposes. Right, these are the bridges in Denmark, which I talked about. Peberholm is a small artificial island in the Danish part of the Øresund Strait, created as part of the Øresund Bridge connecting Denmark with Sweden. Right, so it's part tunnel, part. I see, it's part tunnel, part. Yeah. Part tunnel, part bridge. The reason for constructing the island was to have a crossover point between the tunnel and the bridge. Right. There's a picture of the island, I see. There we go. There's Peberholm. So it's just literally an island that's been built. The bridge goes over the bridge there and then under the sea. Under the sea. Under the sea. Right, that's that one. And there is here Masnadu. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. I think it's Masnadu, but this is it anyway. You can correct my pronunciation if you are Danish. Is a Danish land between Zealand and Falster, and it can be reached by the Masnedson Bridge from Zealand or Storsund Bridge from Falster. The two bridges previously formed the major road and rail link between the two larger islands, but the road link has now been replaced by the larger Faroe Bridge, which crosses the strait. Alright. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. And there's one more here. I mean, and then there's this one here, Faroe. This is the big bridge, I take it. Which again, if I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. Or Faroe, I think that might be. It's an island in Denmark, located between the islands of. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. And Falster. It has 4 people living there. And there it is. There it is. That's Faroe, with the bridge just going across it, like it's. Like I said, it's just like Cotland Island, a footpad, basically, a stepping stone. So thank you very much for that, much appreciated. Allowed to be proud. This is an old one, this is. And Shelley Northwest says, epic. Thank you, Shelley. Glad you liked that. I thought it was quite funny. That was like a portering one I did when I was a porter, yeah. Right. Shelley says joke not suitable in replies. Okay, I won't. I'll read that later, Shelley. Fair enough. And she's got like a big warning sign here and a radioactive sign. Right, you are. I'll look at it. I'll read that when I come to the end of this segment, Shelley. Thanks. But it's on Making Dignity Statements Part 1. And we have here Making Dignity Statements Part 1 again. Shelley says, great stuff. I caught this video way back when it's one of the things that impressed me. Thanks very much, Shelley. It was a part of the evidence, unfortunately, that was used, or the so-called evidence that was used to sack me, which is a great shame. Yeah. Oppenheimer Film Review. Embracing 01 says, John Hamer believes that nuclear bombs don't exist. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings were a hoax. I do tend to agree with him. Shannon Rowan, his co-author on one of his recent books, also agrees with the nuclear weapons hoax. You could go to the Eric Von Essex show, Ben. Right, thanks, Embracing 01. I've actually been on Eric's show. He actually invited me on as a guest, and he was on her HPANWO show as well. Yeah, I like Eric's show, his channel. Now, I've actually, believe it or not, talking about debates, I've challenged John Hamer to a debate about the flat Earth. Now, if this happens, it will happen to Truth Seeker's T-side. So hopefully that will come. It was actually, I think it was Truth Seekers T-side themselves that wanted it done, and they asked me, and I said yes. So if that happens, it will be at some point up in their area, and so there will be a full on debate between me and a flatty, a globe head, me and a flatty. Okay, so bullies are innocent. This is another old world question mark. It's kind of like an ironic title. And Shelley says not suited for public replies. Okay, Shelley, I'll read that again. I will read that privately. And I've got another one called bullying. This is another old video. These are about 15 years old, these videos. And Shelley also says this is not suited for public replies. No problem, Shelley, but thanks very much. Oh, so I'll actually delete I'll delete the notices because I'm actually not going to. Whoops. Delete because I'm not going to reply to them in this particular segment. Nothing's happening. Oh, come on. Delete. Right. And this one, delete. And I'll do the same. Yeah. So I'm not going to reply to it here. Oh, hang on. What's this? Oh, I didn't. I was going to Embracing 01. I deleted my comment to reply to Embracing 01. Yeah. Right, 83, Gary Robinson says, "Hi Ben, mate, I'm not sure if you've seen it already, but Netflix have just released a new UFO show called Encounters. It features an episode on the Broadhaven Triangle sightings in Wales in the 70s, and also an episode on the Zimbabwe school sighting. Looks pretty good, but I've not watched it yet. Cheers." Thanks, Gary, and you know what? I've actually just written a review of the first episode. It's about Broadhaven. Now, if you're watching this in some countries, you won't see this particular episode. You'll see a different one. But here we go. I'll just show you it. If my browser seems to be running very slow tonight. I'm actually setting up my new PC at the moment, but it doesn't. It's having a few teething troubles. I think I'm gonna have to get a new license for bloody. Here we go. Right, let me just go back to OBS and click on display. There we go. Come on. So it's just running a bit slow. Whoops. Is that working? Right, OBS is now not responding. Does that mean it's broken? I don't know. Just pause for a moment. Yeah, OBS is kind of like what could be happening is not. Oh dear. Come on. Oh, what's happening now? Is that working now? Right, here we go, yeah. Encounters episode 1, there we go. So I've actually done a review of it. Let's go back now, there we are. So hopefully that worked alright and you didn't sort of end up without a recording. But yeah, it had a little hiccup there at that point. So I've got to watch the rest of them now, definitely. Reply to comments 83, JamNoise72 says... Oh, 283. I know what this is. I don't need to click on it. It's a timestamp. Wow, thank you. Steady on, bro. Oh, thanks. Just I felt unbearably hot there for a second. Oh, I know what that's about, Jackie. St Helena Airport, Cotland Island. Tessa 1111. If they build dams from the Mediterranean Sea closure and Baltic Sea closure, would that provide electricity for all of Western Europe, Central Europe and Middle East? Would this get rid of fossil fuels totally? It wouldn't, Tessa, no. Even a hydroelectric dam that big wouldn't do the job. I said, if they declassify free energy, then this sort of technology will be obsolete anyway. The guy who came up with the idea, this German guy, I think he also had the idea that they could free up a lot of land for development and things like that. Basically, you could build things on the Mediterranean, what was the Mediterranean seabed. But there's all kinds of problems with that, environmental, the risk of if the dam fails and the Mediterranean refloods, I mean, you'll be in trouble there. Yeah, right, conspiracy theory deprogramming, new video. I know there's a long comment on here from Skeptic of the North, so I'll come to that. Stephen Truthseeker, hi Ben, was this a live stream? No, it wasn't, Stephen. And Keith Smith says, Ben's stream was live, but only from the 5th dimension. Really? Okay, same video. Tadpole says, I can't stand Sanders. It means Neil Sanders, I think. John Terry says, Smarmy Sanders. Looks like a lesbian skateboarder who was breastfed LSD. I say, as for Neil, I described my feelings about Neil in this particular video. Right, here we go. We now have... Oh, we have a long We have Keith Smith said on conspiracy theory deprogramming. Hi, Ben. Everyone knows you're way past any help from the deprogramming. Keep up the good woo-woo fight. Thanks. And Shelley says, thank God. Yeah, I'd already seen the videos anyway, so there's never any danger. But I did think this is the... Of course, David Smith will say this is not the ultimate test because, Skeptic of the North doesn't shout and scream and hurl abuse at people. That's the ultimate debate, isn't it? That's the ultimate in logic and reason. And David Smith says, tell me about it. I've tried to push rationality towards him, but his mental gymnastics means it rarely gets there. Don't talk crap, David. Don't talk crap. Of all the people you say that about, you say that about a guy who is perfectly willing to discuss any subject with you. So to cut the bullshit about me, about this stupid rhetoric here. Oh, mental gymnastics, pushing rationality towards him. Oh, of all the people you could say that to, you try to lay that line on me. It's just, again, David, I think we're talking at cross purposes here. And that what you just said there really indicates it's like this thing where I said, Star Wars is such a good film. You say, Ben, why don't you like Star Wars? That sort of, I feel like I'm saying one thing, you're hearing another. Right, we have now a timestamp from The Lights Were Low, which is, yes, hang on, here we go. Right. Okay, just waiting for the page to open. Come on. Pedal hard. My dad always said that. When my dad's driving, and he meets somebody who's like driving too slowly, he says, come on, pedal hard. On the Boston brakes. They cripple the car with this explosive planted on the axle, and then if she survives the crash, someone goes in right, there. Yeah, this is about Diana, yeah. And Lights Were Low says, I'd have to say here, Ben, there are more figures of note that people, many millions of people want dead, and similarly figures from history that in fact had attempts on their lives. 1939 to 1945. That's the World War II, I suppose you mean. Multiple attempts on one poor chap. Right. Who was that? What's that? Not Hitler. I mean, there's General Stauffenberg trying to kill Hitler. I remember. Yet with all the power in the world, these people survive. That certain person survived. He didn't in the end. Well, he didn't. He died in Antarctica or South America. Anyway, I'm not going to go there now. Okay. We seem to give too much credence in this case to Diana being a threat than other far more dangerous individuals who are unlikely to be Illuminati yet survive. I don't know about that. Lights Were Low. Diana was she was in a relationship with an Egyptian Muslim in the geopolitical climate of the late 90s, and she was going to be the Queen Mother and not married to the King. Now that's or she was going to be, she would have been like Queen Consort without being married to him. And the mother of the princes of the realm, including the heir apparent William. The royal family wanted her out of the way. Anyway, that other far more dangerous individuals who survived. He says, on a small scale, if the Where Do the Towers Go book was any threat, would Dr. Judy be alive? Yes, because if anything happened to her, what would happen to the book? What would happen to the sales of the book? It would be the ultimate, I think, in the Streisand effect, if anything would happen to her. As it happens, Dr. Judy has been harassed very badly. One of her students was murdered, for example. They often do that instead. Lights continues. The Capel Green witnesses seem to be mainly alive. Bob Lazar surely is the line-up to go. Well, firstly, you mean Larry Warren and people like that. They're in a position where probably getting rid of them would do more harm than good. Diana was in a position where it was worth the risk, I think, of taking her out, knowing full well that the Streisand effect would apply to her. But still, they decided to they calculated that getting rid of her would be, the cost benefit analysis would be higher. Bob Lazar, we don't even know if he's telling the truth. I'm suspicious that he's not. Putin, if indeed not part of the elite, could be taken out regardless of security. Well, indeed, I'm sure people have tried, and he has to be very careful where he goes. I think there are a lot of powerful people protecting certain individuals. Look at Trump. Trump's still here. Lights continues. The list of people in the way of the elite is huge, and Diana was not anywhere near the top of that list when you look at other contenders. Lights, I think she was pretty high up, and she was in a position where she could be taken out. She didn't. She had people involved in the body in her security were compliant. In other words. There have been disasters from earthquakes to ships sinking and planes crashing where procedures weren't followed and hundreds of thousands died because what should have happened didn't, as referenced in the trauma protocols, etc. with Diana. I don't think there's is there equivalent that just happened by chance of, the car being taken away and crushed, the whole tunnel being swept within a few hours, all the medical records going missing, all the other anomalies. Is there an equivalent of that? Are things just happening by chance? He continues. As an example, when Hurricanes Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005, a lone Coast Guard helicopter flew over to take the initial devastation. With phone lines down, the only communication was by email, but the government officials didn't use email at that time. It took a day for them to be appraised. Then the state government wouldn't yield power to the federal government, and the federal wouldn't give the state government the go-ahead. Hundreds of buses were denied access and turned away from the high ground where they could have saved lives. This was one of the many ultra-catastrophes that occurred during that disaster due to processes not being followed. This led to deaths, lootings, hospitals without power and horrendous conditions. The Katrina Katrina thing, I think it was not that the way you describe it. For the way FEMA behaved, the way they sealed off the city, the way they specifically forbade people from entering with supplies, including John Travolta. He's a pilot. Well, he got in his private plane, filled it up with all kinds of useful supplies, and he tried to fly to New Orleans, and he was not allowed to land. Things like that. I think that FEMA basically did what the police do during school shootings. Seal off and just let them get on with it. Seal the place off, let them get on with it. Yeah. Light says, the point I make is that sometimes procedures aren't followed, yet this, in the case of New Orleans, was not on purpose. Dave Lights, I think it was. The death and destruction was not caused on purpose. I think it was. The same could be said of Titanic. The Herald of Free Enterprise, measures put in place didn't happen. Right, in terms of Titanic, and there was very, very poor... It turns out there were a lot of mistakes made there. But this is not equivalent to the Diana. Herald of Free Enterprise, again, a massive blunder, not shutting the bow doors. But that is, again, there's no equation, you can't equate that. Measures put in place didn't happen, but in my opinion, just because there was a famous person involved that some may have wanted dead, whilst millions wanted alive, we shouldn't view in a different way. We need to look at other accidents in that tunnel, similar tunnels, where the driver was over the limit and see what happened. Well, some researchers have done that, Lights. I mean, the reason, as I said, there's a distinct reason in terms of the anomalies, the way anomalies were, anomalous practices, rules were broken in a way that doesn't happen by chance. Other cars have crashed in that tunnel, yes, and when it happens, usually the forensic the forensic team goes in there to examine the wreckage of the car, examine the scene. The tunnel is usually closed for a number of hours afterwards. If you or I had been in that car, that's probably what would have happened. This didn't happen with Diana. Now, there's got to be an explanation for that. I don't think you can compare it to the Titanic or the Herald of Free Enterprise. Light says, it's too easy to say this person died because... ... when there are thousands, millions more potentially a threat to the elite that simply keep breathing. As I say, Bob Lazar is obviously Tefal. Bob Lazar is a tea leaf. I've gone off Bob Lazar. I think he's. I may be wrong, but there's other. Obviously, I think there's reasons why some people are taken out and others not. It's not simply a case of they're a threat to the Illuminati, so we're going to take them out, because there's the possibility that it could backfire the way I described. I think what they do is they do a cost-benefit analysis, like I said, and sometimes they will take people out, otherwise not. Conspiracy theory deprogramming. John Terry says, but have you ever seen Richard D. Hall and Dr. Judy Wood in the same room at the same time? No. We got another conspiracy theory here, I think. Yes, is that Richard in a wig, putting on a fake voice? Or is Dr. Judy Woods, has she dyed her hair and cut it short and pretending to be Richard D. Hall? And Johns continues on the same video. Have you ever seen Andrew Johnson and one of the Mexican aliens in the same room at the same time? I haven't, no. I've seen Andrew with a Star Child skull, but not the Mexican aliens. Is that Andrew covering himself in white powder like talc and is lying in a box? John Terry says on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming, Richie Allen, the BBG, Big Baldy Grifter. Right, there's no real reason. He's not giving a reason. He's just calling the Big Baldy Grifter. That's not really. That doesn't explain anything, really, does it? Gary says, Richie Allen is a grifter? Question mark. You obviously know something that nobody else does. In which case, it is breaking news. Please detail everything you know. As soon as you've done that, I'll drop a press release and get it distributed to all the relevant people in the mainstream media, apart from those at the BBC, for obvious reasons. Yes, come on, John Terry, let's have it. I could just easily say, well, the mathematician who says 2 + 2 = 4 is a big baldy grifter. Therefore 2 + 2 = 5, doesn't it? Yes. No evidence, just rhetoric. Right, how are we doing for time? That's good. Vrillon Aura says, on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming, since I read Ben's books, I have to wear a tinfoil suit and hat. I hope the BBC can check all my facts for me, as I just don't have any self-agency whatsoever. Exactly, you've on the tinfoil suit, not just the tinfoil hat, Vrillon. It's good to hear from you again, too. Woo-woo! Wow conversation. Course sounds a bit like some kind of religious Puritan mania to me, haha. Ben, you're right on the science, spot on. You're right on the science, spot on. Dare to question it? There goes your job. MSM, lol. He answered his own question. I think so, yes, Vrillon, that's right. Right, we now have Gary Robinson saying this on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming. Ben mate, this is completely off topic. However, I've watched the first 2 episodes of Encounters on Netflix, and so far it's been very interesting and very frustrating. The first episode focuses on Broadhaven, on the Broadhaven Triangle, and shows some interesting footage of a UFO investigator called Randall Pugh from a 1970s TV interview in which he says something along the lines of, based on his knowledge of the subject, if people knew the truth about UFOs, they would run for their lives. Yeah, I saw that bit. Now, I've, of course, read Pugh's book. As you know, if you're a regular viewer, I've actually been to the location. And Pugh's book is very, very interesting. It's a very, very interesting guide, actually, to the whole situation. There are actually 3 books written about this. The other is Peter Paget's The Welsh Triangle, and then there was the Uninvited something or other. It's The Uninvited. I can't remember the name of the author, which focuses specifically on the farm issue. Yeah, but yeah, he did say that, Pugh. Yeah, which is a bit like. Which reminds me a bit of, what was it, of Margaret Thatcher. You can't tell the people. And several other people have been quoted saying this. Anyway, Gary carries on. The witness accounts in both episodes are incredible and feature original interviews from when the incidents happened, and also new discussions with the witnesses. What I found very frustrating about the first episode is that despite the detailed and passionate witness accounts, they still bring out David Clarke, who explains the Broadhaven Triangle events away as the people either referencing folklore in their subconscious or being influenced by seeing sci-fi movies on TV. Yeah. How does that work exactly? Is he saying that people can experience shared hallucination because of folklore and TV shows? The answer to that question is yes. David Clarke does think that. He said that, or was it him who said it? It was someone in FT said that Robert Taylor had watched Doctor Who the previous evening, which is why he had that encounter in Detchmont Woods with the thing that looked a bit like what he saw on Doctor Who. It's absurd. It's easily discredited, easily totally comprehensively discredited. But Clarke keeps saying it. I suppose you have to have a skepper with a hard ER on these programs. I'd rather he didn't have Clark all the time though. He seems to be the Mr. Skeptic now, doesn't he, for UFOs? He's the new he's the new Philip Glass. So yeah, I was frustrating, I suppose, but you got to pay lip service to impartiality and things like that. And they talked about the guy with the fireman's suit. I mean, I've just shown you the article I did about it. The guy with the fireman's suit, calling occupants of interplanetary craft. Again, complete nonsense. It was posited by the newspapers. When I first heard that they'd posited this in the papers, it must have been a joke. I thought they don't really think that all this phenomenon can be explained by some guy in a silver suit wandering around in the countryside. Anyway, Gary continues. Now, secondly, in the second episode, which is all about the Zimbabwe school sighting, yeah, I've not seen that yet. That's next on my list. They wheel out a guy who claims that he made the whole thing up and that all of the other kids went along with the hoax. Right. Now, I've not heard this one, so I look forward to seeing that. I'll have a lot to say about it, Gary, you can bet. After watching the footage of John Mack's interview with the children and seeing how they were affected, I find it hard to believe that guy. Yeah, based on what you told me so far, I do as well. I mean, I've not heard him, obviously, but it sounds almost as crazy. I mean, Steve Mumbling. I think Steve Mumbling's minibus is the most ridiculous theory to explain this. But there you go. It's a clown's day off, in it, so that wins by default because it doesn't involve aliens for some reason. Gary. One of the teachers at the school explains how she was abducted by small aliens 3 times after the incident happened. That's a very interesting story in itself. Definitely worth a watch, mate. Cheers. You bet. Gary, I swear, I mean, I've not seen this. So this is new information on me. I mean, this wasn't in Nicholson's documentary about that one of the teachers was abducted. Which one? Not Mrs. Hwacha. Was it Mrs. Hwacha? I'll be interested to see that. Thanks very much, mate. Thank you. Jamnoy says, check your email. Check your info email. I did, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, we have had a private discussion. Same video, Gary Robinson. In regards to Neil Sanders, I don't know him personally, but the fact that he went on national TV and portrayed a friend who helped him to advance his career was not cool, and probably says a lot about his character. Yeah, I actually did cover this, Gary. I did a special live stream about Richard when all this came out in that horrible radio show and TV program and the article. I think Neil actually believed he was doing Richard a favour. I don't think he believed he meant to betray him, but. I don't know how someone with Neil's knowledge of the media and how it works could be that naive. Actually, to think that he could go on to a BBC documentary and give Mariana Spring and her editors full control of what he was saying, and somehow think that he could defend Richard that way. It's unbelievable. He actually thought that. Gary says, I'm talking about RDH, of course, who was his mate as far as I know. Neil appeared on Rich Planet TV several times over the years promoting his books and no doubt gained a huge following as a result. Yeah. In fact, not only that, Gary, but Richard continued to allow Neil on his show long after he completely turned against almost everybody else. I don't know exactly when the moment was, but Richard literally went anti-everyone in about 2013, 2014, and he just refused to speak to it. He just refused to speak to anyone except Andrew Johnson and a few other favoured few, and Neil's among those favoured few. So yeah, it's ironic, and I'm sure Richard. I can just imagine what Richard thinks about it, how he feels. Pioneer Spirit, Pride and Dignity, Brother Porter. This is Trevor. This is Trevor from. And this is Trevor here from Third Rail Radio. Check out his YouTube channel. Excuse me. I thought your background looked like a black man running out of a Native American teepee. I suppose it did, but that's the background behind me. I chose. It was actually it's just someone running away from the Illuminati, from conspiracy theories. But yeah, definitely. Alright, it's the same video. Crabtree Drive says, I used to be a fence sitter on most subjects until presented with unquestionable proof. The trouble with a lot of conspiracy theorists is that they religiously believe their theories to be true without the hard evidence to back them up. Some do, Crabtree Drive, but I mean, the ideal thing is to I believe that conspiracy theories can be defended logically in many cases. That's the thing. Nothing, as it seems, says on the same video. Ben, it's one thing to Americans who are generally lousy at geography. It's one thing to Americans, I think you mean to say Americans are generally lousy at geography, but to say they are more naive in general. I might point out that an informed citizenry is the best defence against tyranny, but it isn't Americans who has lost its right to bear arms. Alright, I stand by what I said. I think Americans are generally more naive. This doesn't mean every single one of them are. I mean, there's almost 400 million of them now, and yeah, they do actually it's 3.2 million or something, million or whatever it is, 302 million or something. But yeah, an informed citizenry and an armed citizenry is the best defence against tyranny. But they have given up. Some have given up a lot of their gun rights. Some support the disarming of the population, supposedly to prevent atrocities like Shady Nook from happening. Yeah. And I think that is a sign of naivety, yeah. Trevor, Pioneer Spirit, Pride and Dignity, Brother Porter, says, a B-25 bomber slammed into the Empire State Building in July 1945, and the building was back open for business a week later. How did 2 planes blow up 3 buildings? I've got more 9/11 question. You bet, Trevor. I mean, that was interesting. That I remember the B-25 bomber. It's still the building is still standing today, and it didn't create the fire. I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm sure I know skeptics can say, well, the Empire State Building is not built the same way as the World Trade Center. Yeah, I know. But then they keep coming up with all kinds of things about curtain wall buildings and things like that. This doesn't explain, I mean, how it's not just the buildings remain standing, it didn't turn into a cloud of dust. Neil says, King Kong was helping them with repairs, apparently. Good old King Kong, yeah. Oh, and we have David Smith on cue. Speak of the convenient. I can see where you're going wrong. The buildings collapsed. They didn't blow up. Well, they didn't collapse. David, they didn't collapse. They turned into dust in midair. David says that the Empire State Building was made differently to the towers. If you throw a stone at a house, nothing much will happen. But if you throw it at a greenhouse, it might break something. Different buildings have different methods of construction. David is actually right, and I knew a skeptic would say this. This still doesn't explain, for example, the anomalies of the Twin Towers, even if what Trevor said was not a completely accurate analogy. Conspiracy theory deprogramming. I wonder if it will work with Mr. Mumbling. Maybe he wrote the course. I think he needs deprogramming the other way, but I don't think he wrote the course because he and Skeptic of the North are slightly different. I don't think Skeptic of the North said, well, it's absolute rubbish. It's a steaming pile. He didn't say that. MH370 live stream, right. Tor Engen, hello Tor, back again for an old video from a few years ago. To make sure, call centre can be set up to do pre-calls in bulk. Hang on, to be sure. Call centres can be set up to do pre-calls in bulk. When one is answered the call, then the call are then routed to one free agent at the call centre. That's why we have silent delay and can drop if cannot find available agents. Right, I think you may be referring to the strayed away thing. Did I bring up strayed away in this live stream? Well, I'm planning on doing a special like cold case video about strayed away actually. But I think it's. And by the way, I've got to apologise because I haven't done a video for almost a week. I've been just doing other things. That's why I did that rather superfluous and pointless community notice the other night. I'll probably delete it. Okay, independent reporters was in Ukraine and interviewed about MH17 some time ago. There was report that 2 Ukraine military jets following the plane. This information was sent to Netherlands, but has been refused to look at. it. Okay, I'm trying to translate your terrible grammar, Tor Engen. I don't know what language you speak as your first language. You need to work on your English, mate. Okay, I think what you mean is independent reporters were in Ukraine and interviewed about MH17 some time ago. There was a report that 2 Ukraine military jets were following the plane. This information was sent to the Netherlands, but they refused to look at it. Right, I've not heard about that, Tor, but yeah, it's I don't buy the book missile thing. I think it was designed to demonize Russia. God knows if that was purely the motive for shooting down the jet, the airliner. I doubt that, but anyway. Conspiracy theory deprogramming. Nothing as it seems. How are you doing? Nothing. Re-education. Let's have a look. There's a link to a YouTube channel here. YouTube Watch. What's this? Oh, this is the... This is... Oh, I don't... Sorry.
But we're going to give you both a brand new Google Pixel 8.
Sorry. Nothing that seems... There's a massively long advert, and then there's a... This is actually part of YouTube's music library, and you can't skip the ad, and there's no pause button or volume control, so I'm afraid I'm not going to watch that. Could you explain what exactly that is? Oh, we have Shelley Northwest, who says here on... It's quite a long comment. On conspiracy theory deprogramming. Good day, Ben. About Mumbles having gone missing, but most definitely watching that video. What you should do is get a pair of your best boots, then film them. Then upload the video for Mr. Mumbles. Let him know that he can kiss your boot before he gets access to you. These boots are made for walking. One of these days, these boots are going to walk all over Steve Mumbling. Designate that video the only place you'll respond to him from, making him a sign of dignity pledge before he has access. He knows he has you wrapped around his Darwinist finger and can bully you or anyone he wants to. He can't, Shelley, he can't. He's doing an abandonment gig to get you thankful to see him, then will degrade repeating the cycle again and again. Right, I know you think he's like just going quiet, hoping I'll start begging him, Shelley. No, I won't. I've given him an offer, a challenge, and he can reply. And if he wants to reply, I'm willing. But I'm certainly not gonna. I'm not gonna chase after him and say, "Come on, Steve, come on, do it." No, he has my challenge. He knows he can't get away with saying I've never challenged him. So I'm going to leave it there, I think, if he doesn't want to get back to me. Alright, here we go. The same goes with a few other Darwinists now, flipping your channel to be about bullying, almost institutionalizing it here. You have a few lions in management now who have found out you won't discipline anybody because you might want to fight more than dignity standards. I do discipline people, Shelley, sometimes, but if they need it. I don't think... I know you probably feel differently about this, but I don't think Steve has done anything to warrant, say, being banned. I mean, being blocked. I have deleted some of his channels. I've deleted some of his comments, certainly. Oh, it feels to me like the Darwinists and the whole child survival of the fittest conduct is eclipsing you. I was not expecting Mr. Mumbling's open smears and degradation of people to be so welcomed here, and to where bullying could begin to anyone affected by it. I would never allow him to address anyone who doesn't feel comfortable being addressed in the way he does to anyone else. I wouldn't, Shelley. And if he does that to you, I'd delete his comments. He addresses me, and I basically give him as good as I get. And I know you feel kind of third-party empathy in that respect. You've explained. But I'm still going to continue to treat him in that way. What you can do, Shelley, is you can block him. If you block him, you won't be able to see his comments. I recommend if it upsets you that much. I don't want you to feel upset. It's a bit odd that even brought it up over here. So I looked up the astrology. Father Time Saturn. The father comes home to actively discipline what he went wayward without conscience. Just entered Pisces. All right. Yeah, Saturn is the disciplinarian. It reins things in. It drags you to reality. Yeah. Saturn is now serving the divinity codes Pisces is specifically about. Pisces is about the whole of mankind, down to the least versus individuals. She's about taking care of the whole, and lions being eaten if they voluntarily refuse to respect towards the rest of the creation. She's about wide spectrum respect instead of wolves feasting on the vulnerable ones they normally debase and bully. How's that for things returning full cycle when somebody, me, writes about it, about Mr. Mumbling's debasement? At this phase, the focus is coming in not about an individual, you, but if it's getting to be normalised in a systemic kind of way, like you saw back when, but that doesn't mean others did. Anyway, that mumbling needs discipline, he truly does. Shelley, I'm not sure exactly what you feel I should do. Do you feel I should block him? Because I don't believe he deserves blocking. If you feel I should delete some of his comments, I have deleted some if he attacks other people. He could be rude, he can be scathing towards me, and I'll be scathing back to him. But really, no one is affected. There's no injured party here, apart from the me or him in that situation. And we both, I think, seem to agree mutually to give each other as good as we get. I do suggest you avert your eyes from his posts or block him. I mean, he has attacked other people, and I have deleted his comments when he attacks other people, which does count as discipline, I think. And we have a thread here, which is Shelley Northwest here, on conspiracy theory deprogramming. Yeah, it's dogpiling, not debate, Ben. I think you should crack open an actual logic book, classical of course, and get David answering to his wacky epistemology. Then of course upload another Kiss My Boots video where he signs a good faith contract to follow logic and mental health rules. I'd so far as say he's likely looking for a father to help him sort out these original crap logic wounds. Sincerely, your delicate but mouthy Shelley. Hold me back before I go on him again. Hold my beer. Hold me. Shelley, yeah. I don't know. I mean, as far as David goes, I've kind of done that. I think David is now in a corner where he can't back out for reasons based on what I said in the video, based on his the strange reverence he has for Matt Dillahunty in his TV show. And Shelley continues, "Oh, don't remember my dignity statements when the invisible line kicks in, Ben Fry." Ben Fry, when the invisible line kicks in. Okay, David Smith, I don't understand you, Shelley, quite, but thanks very much. And I have kind of put David in this situation. And David says here, and maybe you could reply to me and engage rather than running away. And checking the timer because I haven't got the clock running. And strawmanning me, just something to consider. Hats off to Ben for doing this video, but saying you changed your mind about something doesn't make you rational about all your beliefs. Well, it doesn't, David. And I mean, I personally don't think Skeptic of the North and Brent Lee and Neil Sanders are actually, I think they made a big mistake. I think they have. And Shelley of the Northwest. Actually, I'm going to change we're now on, yeah, I'm almost at the point where I need to move on to another hour, so I will stop recording. We'll continue with hour number 3 shortly, and I'll continue this thread there. Okay, I'm using a slightly different timer this time. This is hour number 3, everyone. I'm using a different timer. I'm using one on my mobile phone. Hopefully it'll work better. I think it's just basically I'm in the process of setting up my new PC. I've got a new desktop, and it's taking time. And there's various things I need to buy and sort out. It takes a lot of time. Anyway, back to Shelley versus David. She says to Shelley, you don't talk, David. Hang on, I might not finish this particular thread because it may just be an argument between Shelley and David. I'm not available for that. You're not above others. I'm talking with Ben here about dogpiling. Sorry you're upset, but leave my hands tied. But you leave my hands tied by not caring about me or others. You're a Darwinist, Ben's slang, that expects to bully. I'd say you have a riddle to solve. And David, hang on. I'm not going to continue reading this. This is kind of like becomes a personal argument between David and Shelley. So apologies to David and Shelley. I'm not going to read the rest of this, but feel free to have this discussion amongst yourself. And we have here. We have Shelley. Is another thread with Shelley. Says, I think Skeptic of the North is rational. However, it's that he attributes positions onto people in a way that they don't hold. He's not actually into any real substance then, and empirically dealing, sorting through anything in a sophisticated way, just making conclusions based on the lowest spin he can attach to events and others. I think based on, I think the lowest spin. I think if you mean like he's essentially applying some of the skeptic fallacies that I mentioned in my skeptic talk, then yes, I think he's doing that. Shelley continues, it's not healthy to be this removed and situationally unaware of power structures. Oh, and you'd have to love that classic trope that others are blindly accepting rather than questioning and examining and holding their ground when they do find something valid. I did actually find, Shelley, that Skeptic of the North was a lot of what he said. A lot of what I said to him and what he said was kind of my criticism of him. Basically, was finding a symmetry. In other words, what he was saying essentially applied equally to skeptics, and what I was saying applied essentially equally to the other side. So he essentially was making criticisms of the other side that I would make of the skeptic movement. Not entirely, as I mentioned, there was not a total symmetry. I mentioned there's something about the mainstream that is unique, which you don't get in the alternative side of things. And Skeptic of the North himself actually comments here, and I must say he actually does put a very long comment at some point, which I will read out. And I appreciate Skeptic of the North actually getting back to me on this and giving his own feedback. I didn't share the video with him; he must have found it. But I don't know him. I don't know him. He's not someone I feel I can approach in that way. But anyway, Skeptic of the North says, I'm not going to imitate his accent. I assume he's from Northern Ireland because of his accent and his name. But he says here, that's a very odd comment considering my ABCs to politics were manufacturing consent by Noam Chomsky and shock doctrine by Naomi Klein around 15 years ago. Well aware of the power structures, just not the misunderstood B-movie film plot that conspiracists subscribe to. Right, now it's funny that I've not read Naomi Klein's book, Shock Doctrine, but I'm familiar with Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent. Now, I think Chomsky has kind of gone off the rails a bit in the last couple of years, maybe because of his age. I think his attitude towards the C word was, I think he was kind of almost super mainstream about that, which is very disappointing. But I've not read the book, but I'm familiar with Chomsky's views, and I've listened to a lot of his lectures. I find him very impressive. Yeah. But so I mean, you obviously you must have, if you studied Chomsky, you must have some understanding. In fact, you bring up Chomsky in your video where he discusses the JFK assassination, and so yeah, and he has a good line on some things. And so David Smith says underneath to Skeptic of the North, are you upset? Sorry, inside joke. Right. I think this is something, maybe another skeptic. I don't know what you mean, David. I think this is probably, like I say, an inside joke between skeptics. Only a skeptic could understand. No, we hospital porters have our own version of that. Shelley says to Skeptic of the North, by golly, another book read by another borderline psychopath. I mean, Skeptic, I bow at your feet. Shelley, that's quite rude, actually. But anyway, I mean, I'm not going to delete your comment if Skeptic the North doesn't mind. How's your civics, your willingness to maintain your mind in a set of boundaries that respects differences in people? If you routinely give your mind to crossing these civics boundaries, it's considered mental illness, an inability to maintain your mind. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose if you mean that people who, if I understand you correctly, Shelley, if I understand. You mean people who step outside the Overton window of what's acceptable are sometimes accused of being mentally ill? Yeah, I mean, in the Soviet Union, they literally put them into, into hospitals. They said, well, you don't believe in Marxism, Leninism, but everyone knows Marxism, Leninism is real. If you don't believe in it, there must be something wrong with you. What exactly is going on in your thinking to publish a video like this? And if you're predictably aware of the Davos power structures, World Bank, WEF, etc., then by my standards you don't help them shred society. Others, or a whole swathe of people out there, are still tracking their trail. I do think that, when Skeptic of the North says it's a B-movie film plot, I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong there. I think we're dealing with real issues here, and we can explain why, and I'm willing to discuss things why. Shelley continues, I'm not the person who does the song and dance with borderline psycho just because they cite the next loophole. Shelley, it's not fair to call him that. I mean, he hasn't replied to you here, but it's not fair to say that about somebody. I don't think he is. I think he's a guy who's made a mistake. But people sometimes have beliefs like this, especially if I find that. I'll explain why. That I find people. It's not conspiracy believers in general, conspiracy researchers in general. It's those who have a certain attitude towards it, often a very extreme and dogmatic attitude towards our side of the debate, who are most likely to change their minds. Maybe Skeptic of the North was one of them. Unlike Brent Lee, I didn't know him before he became a normie. To me, that touches on masochism. What matters is if you can locate your solidarity button and join the human race, rather than exploit people without much consciousness to what you're doing. Shelley, I think you are being too hard on him here. You really are. By the way, you're the new minority. You're losing your power trip, no matter how smug you get with what is really just a set of smug loopholes. Right. Again, I think that's too hard, but he hasn't replied to you, so we'll leave the matter there. And Shelley says here's another. This is on Allowed to Be Proud. Shelley's put another comment here, not suited for public replies. I'll read that privately, Shelley, and I'll get back to you by email, definitely. And this is Peter Paget, a reply to Steve Mumbling. Shelley's going through all my old videos. I hope you enjoy them, Shelley. I really do. Mr. Lumping, he's not actually thinking, just lumping together what doesn't expect for that which are common to minority views. Technically, that means he can't keep his own mind in logical boundaries, so becoming mentally ill. Shelley, you can be as much what you say to Steve. You can be much harder on him than you can, as far as I'm concerned. I won't accuse you of being unfair to Steve, because he'll give you as good as he gets. Much of mental health is surrendering, this is Shelley again, to the duty to be fair, logical and principled with others rather than choosing to transgress and misrepresentation. I think there is a duty, Shelley, to be fair. I think that is mental health. If you mean mental illness, no, I don't think you mean that, actually. So yeah, I do think we have a duty to be fair, logical, and principled, and I do try to do that. Mental health is largely maintaining one's own willpower to do others right. I see what you mean now. Yeah, you're saying it is actually mental illness is when you don't do that. Yeah, I understand you now. It's not having views that are rare or belonging to a minority. It's called health because it's creating function, peace, kindness, etc. in the world, so that we are thoughtful and helpful to each other rather than mowing each other down. It's civics, not minority views, as Mr. Lumping is using the term crazy. And obviously, instead of forming civic character, one can just pass themselves off as sane by just being of the majority. Of the majority. Interestingly, the word of the majority is the literal translation of the Russian word Bolshevik. By his standards, he could be a psychopath, not give a shit, and be sane. Right? I don't think he's a psychopath. I think he's an idiot, and he is narrow-minded. But I think he's. I don't know if he gives it. I don't know about the rest of it. Nope, this is not how recovery and psych professionals see health any longer. Too many people were abusing the old cliches, so all recovery is now very clear that it's how we are using our minds. Now, the first thing they check are our personal and mental boundaries and the will to function well with others. Oh, God, you see, I don't know, it feels uncomfortable, Shelley, to hear you say that. Not because it's your fault, but because I was targeted by Isabel Menzies Lythe, and I felt she was, in a sense, she was invading me. I felt like she was invading me. It was some kind of personal invasion. I'll go into that in more. Maybe I'll talk to you privately about it, or maybe I'll do. I'm actually working on an entire article about this on HPANWO Voice. I'll share it with you. I'll probably turn it into a video at some point. We have to surrender to others' rights for dignity and care, and maintain ourselves in this context. Yeah, I try and treat people in the same way they treat me. The golden rule. How I would like to be treated. if we must pervert and distort others, finding it entertaining, then we've given our minds to illness. Yeah, I mean, although I would say, unfortunately, Shelley, it's a mental I don't know if you can call something a mental illness when most of the people in the world suffer from it. From their perspective, it's people who are reasonable and kind who have the pathology. I've actually covered this in an article. Look at my empath articles on HPANWO Voice. I've done several articles on empathy. You can find them using the search function. You just put empath or empathy into them. He would be heavily confronted for behaving closer to a psychopath than anything else, then shown what is and is not just with others, and stabilizing ability to be social versus psychopathic. His concepts of mental illness are over 50 years old and debunked. Well, Steve can say what the hell he likes about me. I'll say worse about him. But I know that makes you feel uncomfortable to witness that interaction, Shelley. As I said, I suggest you block Steve or avert your eyes from our discussions. But I think he calls me things that, I mean, I wouldn't call him a psychopath. I would just call him an idiot. I don't think he's a psychopath. I think he's a belligerent, what they call in Australia, a bantam. I think that's what he is. Alright, now we have David Smith replying on conspiracy theory deprogramming, and I think maybe he's going to address the point I made. Ben, I suggested you call in to such a show, that is Matt Dillahunty's show, so you could have a real-time conversation with a fairly well-recognised skeptic. Alright, well, I'm happy to have a real-life conversation with a fairly well-recognised skeptic, but I think Mick West is better than Matt Dillahunty, David, for reasons I've explained. West is calm, he's polite, he's rational. But the fact what concerned me is you considered he was the first person you thought about was Matt Dillahunty, and indeed you sent me a link to one of his shows where he behaves in his typical sort of like dogpiling manner. And I do wonder why you thought of that one first. It's not a level you need to go through to prove anything other than you're willing to engage with someone in real time who will push back, make good challenges to what you're saying. Right, I'm perfectly willing to engage with someone in real time who will push back and make good challenges to what I'm saying, but I'm not willing to engage with someone who will just say, shut the fuck up all the time. Shout at me and say, answer the fucking question before you say anything else. I'm not willing to engage with somebody like that. That is not a skeptic debate. That is a dogpile of someone belligerent who has people, I suspect, puts people on a show who have been filtered to be vulnerable and sensitive. That's what I suspect he does, because the people I heard him talking to were all going, "Oh, sorry, Matt, sorry," and they were trying to be rational and calm. They were clearly quite sensitive, quite gentle people, and he was like mouthing off at them. And I suspect they were filtered through his reception system to be that kind of person. Now, I would reply to him in kind. I'd be as rude and aggressive to him as he was to me. He would cut me off within 5 seconds, David. Because it's not a debate he wants. David continues. Matt gets frustrated quite often, but you don't have to call him. He doesn't get frustrated. He doesn't. Look, I've seen Matt in reasonable conversations with other people on other platforms. He even referenced one of these discussions himself on his own channel. He said, "Oh, I had to talk to this guy about atheism, and we were absolutely fine about it. You know, we never raised our voices, we never cut across each other." So he is capable of doing exactly what you want, David. But not on this particular program. He does. What he does is he dogpiles people who disagree with him for the entertainment of his audience. That's what he's doing. David says, there are many different hosts. I know, David, so why did you suggest Matt Dillahunty and you kept focusing on him and his show? Why didn't you did suggest Mick West. Why didn't you focus more on Mick West? Because Mick is someone I could have a beer with Mick West. I think he's a nice guy. Maybe he'll be at Stairway to the Stars and I'll get to talk to him. I hope so. Oh, yeah. David says, I didn't anticipate you would say something like that, but I think it's untrue. What do you mean? Oh, so Matt Dillahunty is actually polite, is he? And he's reasonable and he's rational. Really? What? You think it's untrue? And you knew I'd say something like that. So in a sense, have you set me up for this conversation we're having now? David, there are many conversations that happen between Matt and people he disagrees with that end very amicably. Right. Well, then why did you post me a link to the video he's made where they don't? Why didn't you? And indeed, I know Matt can speak to people amicably because I've seen him do it. I've been following Matt for quite a number of years, and I've seen interviews with him on various skeptic podcasts. I've seen him at JREF. You know, I've been watching skeptic videos and listening to skeptic shows for ages. He even had a conversation with Jordan Peterson on stage. Well, I've not seen that, but that would be very interesting, definitely. His frustration happens when callers can't be straightforward in their answers. And I would say it's the caller's dishonesty in answering that creates that. No, it doesn't. No, it's David. He was talking to people who I think were gentle, and they were speaking calmly and politely to him. And he answered them the question. He asked a question, and they wouldn't give him an immediate answer, like, answer the question. Is it invasive to tell a woman she has to have a baby or something like that? And this guy was trying to reply to him without a direct answer to the question. He was saying, answer the question. No, answer the question. Answer the fucking question. He was swearing, shouting, swearing. No, he's not getting frustrated because they're not being straightforward. No, if you're in a discussion with someone, they may not want to answer your question directly. Especially when it's a question designed. The question Matt asked was specifically designed to. It was essentially one of these questions that's kind of moral blackmail, with moral blackmail sewed into them, designed to appeal to like the feminist angles. So the feminist norm. So in other words, it's a bit like, would you stand in front of a woman who'd been raped and tell her she has to have the baby and things like that? Again, it's in a sense it's a question. It's almost a rhetorical question with a bit of a smear mixed in with it, if you remember my skeptic fallacies and the videos. If you think the callers are filtered for, easy, then why not try to call in? You see how fallacious your thinking is here. Right. I suppose, all right, I could test that, couldn't I? I could try and call in if I could find. But what would I talk to him about? Because I'm not a sort of person who could argue conventional religion. I would say I'm spiritual. I mean, his focus mostly is on the atheism-theism debate, although he does talk about other things such as ethics to do with abortion and things like that. Yes. That if he brings up a subject like UFOs or ghosts or something, yeah, I'd happily call in for him. But I'd rather talk to Mick West. I think he'd be more in my sort of area, you know. It's exactly, David says, it's exactly what religious believers say, even though Matt has debated some of the most well-known apologists. Well, you know, he has indeed, and I haven't seen him debate Dr. Jordan Peterson, but I saw him with a couple of others. And indeed, he has had reasonable discussions with those people, yeah. So why can't he have reasonable discussions with the people who call in? Just cut them some slack. No. What happens is the people, you could see them in the live chat going, idiot, fool, give them hell, Matt, and things like that. It's pretty clear that's the role of that particular show. That's not everything that Matt does, but that is what he's doing at that point in this particular program. So, and this is the one, you suggested this to me, David, above all else. So it's Matt Dillahunty's Dogpile show, Uber Alice, which leads me to wonder, you know, why you not only chose that, but you tried to push me into a pen to suggest into this little pen saying that is the yardstick, that is the sine qua non finish line you must cross, and there is no other that will do. All right, David says, the only pen is giving good evidence to back up your claims. I've yet to see that in any of your talks or videos. Right, indeed, and that's what we're discussing, David, and I think you're wrong there. Like I said before, many of your beliefs are beliefs I want to be true. Right. Well, that's fine, mate, that's fine. I also have bias. We all have bias. You know, I mean, I just... If you believe that if you want them to be true, maybe I can convince you that you are. That's what we're doing by this discussion. David continues. Also, it's a separate comment now, but he says, also, I would not call it a debate. I would not call it a debate. Like I've said multiple times, I'd call it a conversation. The same thing the Apollo detectives and Steve was more a conversation. Steve made some challenges, but I wouldn't call it a debate. Well, it wasn't a debate. It was actually... So what Steve did a gish gallop of various things mixed with a lot of aggression, and he kept interrupting people and things like that. It wasn't ideal, I would say. I had to pull him in a few times and just say, "Steve, shut up and let people talk." But in the end, all we did was really cover a handful of points in that very long discussion. When I'm on with Steve, I hope we'll do better. I mean, not that the other detectives did the best they could, but I mean, I'll try and maybe do better. David says here also on the same video. Hang we go. You didn't say why science is corrupt. You merely stated an opinion of why you believe it's corrupt. No, I didn't. I explained exactly why I think science is corrupt. I gave a couple of examples. I gave the example of David Bellamy. I think I might have mentioned Arpad Pusztai. Maybe all right. Well, I will. I'll mention Arpad Pusztai was a scientist employed by DEFRA to do tests on genetically modified potatoes to see if they were safe for human consumption. They said to him, "Arpad, find out if these are safe for human consumption." When his reply was, "No, they're not. Don't ever feed these to people," the government then responded, "Wrong answer, Arpad. Try again." And Pusztai then continued to insist that these things were unsafe, and he was sacked. There's an example of why not that science is corrupt, that the establishments that call themselves scientists, in other words, pseudo-scientific state actors and corporate actors, are corrupt. Yes. Your dismissal of such evidence based on supposition demonstrates the difference in our way of thinking. Right. I don't think I dismiss this stuff on supposition. I think I make a good case why we should be dubious of it. I think we do have a difference in our way of thinking. We have different epistemology. Possibly these things are irreconcilable, and to quote Sam Harris, the conversation is over. But I don't think it's the same as what you do. David says, "You're looking for any way to back up your presupposed beliefs, whereas I'm looking for good evidence to support them." Rubbish. This is another of these silly things you say, which could apply to some people, not to me. I'm looking for a way to back up my I'm in a conversation with you about the good evidence or bad evidence to support or dismiss them. So don't give me that shit, David. Don't. David says, another comment, same video. "Science doesn't work by scientists screaming to believe them. It works by peer review, showing good evidence, etc." It works by... No, yeah, it does. It doesn't work by anyone screaming to believe anything. It does work by good evidence. Peer review is a part of that, but peer review is not... Peer review does not eliminate bias in the way that Skeptic in the North thinks it does. Henry Clark says on deprogramming. Henry Clark. "Fair play now, YT," and then there's a gap, then Noster, and an ellipsis. I don't know what that means, Henry Clark. And now we have... Oh, Skeptic of the North. Yeah, here we go. Skeptic, he actually gives a long... detailed comment here, which I'm going to reply to. So I appreciate him making. Right. Okay. So, "Hey Ben, you seem like a nice dude, and I'm happy and flattered you took the time out to review my series. I also have no issue with you posting it here. It's nice, actually, to have it all in one place on a conspiracy-based channel, as it opens it up for discussion, as opposed to just preaching to the converted on my channel. To be honest, though, having reviewed your video, there's very little that merits an actual response." Well, you've given me quite a long one here, Skeptic. "As it would seem that you spend a good 50% of the time pretty much agreeing with my train of thought." Yeah, well, I suppose we maybe in a way we did. Maybe in a way we did. I mean, I did actually state, that I thought a lot of what this video consisted of me explaining how skeptics can be like the people you accuse of being conspiracists and things they do wrong. Other times you would make a comment saying, "Skeptic of the North says that, but why doesn't he address this?" Then in the very next video, it would turn out that I have addressed or attempted to demonstrate why it's wrong and why it doesn't necessarily prove the conspiracist train of thought, etc. So the majority of your action, there is nothing really going on here. There were times when I did notice that I would go forward to another video and then you would actually say something that I covered in the previous video, and you did indeed fill that in, so that's true. I mean, actually, because I did actually watch this video series earlier, but it was a few months ago. Insofar as an attempt at a rebuttal is given, it's usually a very trivial point, i.e. Penn and Teller are shooting a melon, not a skull, therefore we can ignore this. Well, ignore, I mean, it is not an actual, well, it's not an actual true. The reason I think we can ignore it is essentially because or certainly we can be dubious of it because it's not an actual reproduction. And as you say here, well, of course they're not going to use an actual skull to recreate. Yet you can't actually shoot someone else in the head and say, all right, any volunteers, step up here please, just sit in the seat a minute. You can't do that. Yes, I know. But in the same way when you're testing spontaneous human combustion, you can't literally set fire to a pig carcass in someone's house. But I think I did make. I'll come on to this in a minute. Just a moment. Here we go. For what I would hope would be obvious reasons, but it's completely irrelevant to the point that the bullet penetrating the skull or melon doesn't go up against much resistance. In Kennedy's case, the trajectory of his head movement is not inconsistent with a shot from the back, as conspiracists claim, and this is corroborated by the Zapruder film, which conclusively demonstrates his head went initially forward at the moment impact, which you just ignore. Well, I mentioned it looked to me like you see a slight movement on just a single frame, which could be explained as that could be explained as some problem with the playback, the initial playback after Zapruder developed the film. Alternatively, it doesn't. What happens in his head does go back into the left. Not just a little. It doesn't just roll slightly like the melon. He literally goes like that. He's thrust backwards. And there's the situation with the witnesses who said they did hear gunshots coming from the grassy knoll. People say, "Well, Ben, where is it? Where is it?" Oh, well, I'll go and find the details now. No, it was actually I think it was in Mark Good's book. He mentions this. But as I said to you, I mean, this could be solved simply by examining the pathology report, the two that were done. The Dallas coroner, who was very rudely and pushed aside when he very rightly went up and tried to prevent essentially the cover-up, which is portrayed in the Parkland movie as him being some kind of bullish bureaucrat just getting in the way. So, but of course, both pathology reports, including the more detailed one for the U.S. Navy, are classified. So we cannot peer review them, to quote you. Another rather telling point in your video is where I explain Jane Stanley's WTC-7 blunder. I start off by explaining that Building 7 was significantly more damaged than most conspiracy theorists claim, that the firefighters at the scene anticipated its collapse hours ahead of time. Yeah, and they did say it's coming down. I did acknowledge that. It says I heard the fireman says it's coming down. It's coming down. I then show this how it developed into a news story with local news reporters discussing how it was in imminent danger of collapsing. I then show a quote from CNN which had an uncertain update. The building either is collapsing or has collapsed. Then I go to show you the clip of the video of this directly afterwards, lol. Well, I did actually. I think I addressed that actually. I did say I wondered if that was backfilling. I did wonder if that really was a contemporary clip, because I did demonstrate how I believe that one of the news reporters, it appears that this had been edited to make it look like he was saying one thing and not another. This causes you to momentarily fumble and just declare, with no evidence, that it must have been edited post 9/11, even though the footage from the report was live. Lol. Yeah, I did. I haven't actually managed to confirm or deny that just now, but it did look like a suspicious piece of editing. Yeah. I then go on to make the case that Jane Stanley, in the chaos of 9/11, most likely picked up on this and accidentally said Building 7 had collapsed, with herself admitting that the details are very, very sketchy. Well, she could have just looked behind her, or whoever was in the gallery could see behind her. It seemed like a pretty big blunder. It seems to me that this is infinitely more plausible, or at a bare minimum, at least very reasonable hypothesis, as opposed to the idea that the globalists pulled off flawless, perfectly coordinated and very convoluted plan, only to fuck up at the last minute with a scripting error, lol. In fact, even if we are very, very generously grant that the CNN footage was edited, I don't actually think it takes anything away from my main point, that it was widely believed that Building 7 was going to collapse, and the chatter just got misinterpreted on the day. I don't actually have a full answer there for you right now, Skeptic of the North. You could be correct. I do wonder why it's necessary to edit the guy on CNN into saying something he thought was happening when it wasn't. I mean, why would they do that? I know some people say, well, it's because conspiracy theorists say these things that we have to do these sort of things, which again makes it even more suspicious, doesn't it? He carries on. Based on these two examples above, it would seem you are impervious to evidence that contradicts your worldview and will rationalise anything away with fanciful explanations, as I explained in my video on logical errors. Well, I don't think so. If I was that kind of person, I don't think that we'd be having this discussion. So, and indeed discussing with David and other people. Ultimately, it seems that the core of your objection, from what I have gathered here, effectively amounts to what I consider a type of nirvana fallacy or Galileo fallacy. Right, I've not heard of those. But carry on. In the event that a dissenting expert exists, historical corruption exists, or that anomalies exist in a particular world event, not only should the conspiracy be taken seriously, but in most cases it is actually more rational to take the conspiracy position. I understand what you're saying, and indeed I know what you mean, and indeed I did say this. I did come on to this particular point. Is that certain anomalies will emerge in any event, in anything that happens, and you give some examples. You then say, that because these anomalies appear, and this does not mean there's anything anomalous about the entire event. And the point I made was, even if that's true, how many anomalies actually have to occur before we do have to wonder whether something is wrong with the complete event? Because what happens is, when it comes to anomaly hunting, which is what skeptics always accuse, including yourself, accuse conspiracy theorists like myself of doing, sometimes we find 50, 60, 70, 100. And what you say, we look for meaningful events in a random series, and wrongly we find meaning in them. I think with skeptics like yourself, you do the opposite. When a series of meaningful events occurs, you tend to interpret them as random. And as I said in my discussion of the coincidence issue, there doesn't seem to be any real cut-off point for you skeptics. There's no real statistical threshold over which you will essentially say, okay, we shouldn't have this number of anomalies. We need to look into this some more. So yeah, I see what you mean. I didn't know it was called the Nirvana fallacy or Galileo fallacy. Those are quite. Do you mind if I use those? Because those are quite those sound quite fanciful and quite, what's the word? They sound quite sophisticated. Right. I would just submit to you that this is a very unrealistic expectation that will never be resolved, as it is inevitable this will always be the case. In effect, all right, I think, yeah, this is your threshold. You will, by your admission, always be a conspiracy theorist, but on a basis that is not objectively persuasive, and definitely not worth dedicating one's life to shaping one's politics by. Right. Your assessment of my psychology, I'm afraid, is something you alone can comment on, Skeptic of the North. I can't comment on that. It's your perspective of me, which is your business, not mine. The entire point of my series was this is him again. The entire point of my series was to try to explain why this isn't good enough. You spent 4 hours watching the series. So there is not much else I can say to try and persuade you that you're wrong. Well, fair enough. If you really feel I am, in a sense, the conversation is over, as Sam Harris said, maybe that's true. I've endeavoured to be rational and I've tried to treat you with intellectual honesty and rationality. That's all I can say. But to address the main question, he says, you asked you asked throughout, quote, even if someone agreed with every official theory, would that make them automatically rational on everything? And he says no. And once again, I say this numerous times in my series and elsewhere. I think people can be correct about things for poorly justified reasons. Someone might, for example, agree that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, or that the Earth isn't flat, purely because that is the scientific consensus. But it might not actually have the expertise or understanding why they have concluded this. Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I must say, I'm kind of like that. I do accept the universe is a certain age. The flat Earth thing's different though, because I have debated the flat earthers. I do think the Earth is round for a reason, But the age of the universe, yeah, I just assume, I'll go along, I'll take their word for that. Agreeing with this consensus is not a bad starting point, but it also means that if no one is applying consistently reliable skepticism and critical thought to arrive at one's conclusions, it may make a person more susceptible to awkward questioning when someone challenges them on it. Alright, well, you know, Skeptic of the North, I'll look into this 13.8 billion years thing. I mean, it'll take a long time. I'll need to learn, get a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, but, you know, I'll do that when I have the time. He says, you seem to think that people automatically trusting authority makes them more susceptible to being misled by the government. Isn't that self-explanatory? Yes. He says, in some cases, that may very well be the case, but an automatic trusting of experts just before they're experts is actually probably a large reason why people can become conspiracy theorists, in my opinion. Without an understanding of the process itself, it can lead one open to credulous and rhetorical questions with no way to combat them, especially when someone presents themselves as an expert on a topic who is challenging the consensus. Again, it's of this person is an expert, who am I to disagree, rather than having an actual understanding of what they're saying. Well, you know, Skeptic of the North, maybe this is why I do, when it comes to Richard Gage and Stephen E. Thermite Jones, I do question them, but yet they're on my side. They're on my side of the 9/11 debate. I can give you other examples as well. He continues, things that are a mystery to conspiracy theorists often aren't mysterious to people who actually understand the issue. Because they think it's mysterious, they automatically conclude that it is mysterious to everyone, lol. Well, you see, you do say that. Well, you said this in your video. If I can quote you, you said, "Oh, the conspiracy theorists keep asking these questions, but then if they read the NIST report, they'll find these questions were answered." But the fact is, though, a lot of these questions do come from people who have read that NIST report. I've actually only read the concise version, I must say, you know, and the Commission report. I read the concise versions, not the full 500-page doorstep. I haven't, but I read the sort of Reader's Digest highlights. I don't know if that's good enough. I don't know. Maybe if I could take a week off and go to the seaside, I'll dig out the full length version. Except I don't want to pay excess baggage fees on the plane, so I'll probably get the Kindle version. He continues, I think our friend Brent Lee said it best, quote, when I wasn't a conspiracy theorist, I thought I was asleep. When I wasn't a conspiracy, I thought I was asleep. When I got into conspiracy theories, I thought I was awake, but it was just a lucid dream. Now that I'm out of conspiracy theories, I am really awake. Right, well, maybe this is you see, you say, I think, in my opinion, this is absolutely spot on. Yeah, I mean, well, of course, people might be in a particular position and think that they've got all the answers. A very religious person in a cult might think, well, this is the ultimate truth. Yet when they leave the cult, they look back and think, that's not real. In the same way, when I have a dream, it can feel very real. It's very rare that I have a dream and I don't realise I'm dreaming. That'll be a lucid dream. When I wake up, I think, oh, that's just a dream, and I can tell the difference. The thing about it is, though, I mean, there are ways of pinching yourself. Oh, I mean, pinching doesn't work, because I've tried pinching myself. That doesn't work. It does hurt when you pinch yourself in a dream, I find. But what I can do is I can test my worldview in a way that Brent never did. I can test my worldview by engaging with the other side of the story. By his own admission, on your own channel, he said that he never did. He said he felt a lot of hostility towards the debunkers when he was a conspiracy theorist. So I mean, maybe that's the only way that I can really deal with this Skeptic of the North. Maybe that is the only way. Because what else am I supposed to do other than try and test my ideas against dissent? Which I do. He continues, conspiracy theories give simple answers to legitimate questions. I think they give legitimate answers to simple questions in some cases. He continues, there are problems within the scientific community, there are problems within the political and economic establishment, there are problems within the education system, and there are problems with the mainstream media. They're just not the problems you think they are. I don't agree with that. But anyway, and to someone who doesn't have much of an understanding of anything, I think they can be satisfying answers. Well, all of our understanding is limited. We can't know everything. We can't be the Spock-like, super-rational, all-knowledgeable being of science fiction. What we can do is generate actions based on our limited knowledge to the best of our abilities. And one of the ways we can maximize our knowledge is by looking at all sides of the story. He carries on, look, you're obviously a well-read person and probably have a fair understanding of many issues, but I think conspiracy theories fall into the, quote, even the broken clock is right twice a day, unquote, category. I think the key difference between someone who parrots what the scientific consensus says and someone who parrots what the conspiracy theorists say is that the former is at least deferring to some kind of relevant expertise on the matter. Right. I don't think that's the case, certainly not all the time. He continues, you say it yourself at a later point in the video where you admit that, quote, not everyone is going to set up a scientific laboratory in their house, unquote. Well, yeah, that's my point, lol. I'm more inclined to think it's better to trust people who spend their lives legitimately researching an issue than an armchair philosopher who sits at home playing keyboard warrior. Well, to be honest, I do too. And in fact, this is why I do trust Arpad Pusztai's judgment. I do trust David Bellamy's judgment. These, in a sense, are people who, and according to the test that I told you should try, were perfectly sane for their entire career and very well respected until they, quote unquote, went crazy and started denying global warming or GM potatoes. You see, so I do trust their mainstream consensus ideas, yes. But at the same time, you do have to realise that these people who legitimately research an issue are also people who are subjected to the forces beyond that of scientific empiricism. In the case of Arpad Pusztai, it was political. Now, in the case of Bellamy and Pusztai, there are probably millions of Bellamy and Pusztais in the scientific community who just give in, they just cave in immediately, and they don't dare say what they want to say. He continues, there is also consistent logic in the scientific community. The reason why scientists come to unanimous agreement on things is because why they come to unanimous agreement on things. They don't, though, do they? They don't come to unanimous agreement. There's people who think the dinosaurs were killed by a volcano. There's people who think it was killed by an asteroid. And they get into the most vicious arguments. It was parodied on the TV, on the BBC Horizon documentary, as two dinosaurs fighting each other. It was a metaphor, not a parody. It was kind of a parody stroke metaphor. The unanimous agreement is because the evidence is often disproportionately going in one direction. This is the complete opposite in conspiracy communities, where you can speak to 100 different people and get 100 different answers on what the crack is. I think you get certain camps within the conspirasphere, yeah, but not 100. And people tend to cluster into certain camps, as happened with 9/11 with Dr. Judy Wood and the thermite people. But then mainstream science does exactly the same thing. He says conspiracy theorists can go into a topic looking to play the contrarian and do their own research on the matter and come out less informed than if they'd not bothered their arse to begin with. Well, in some people, I suppose, yes. I hope I don't do that. I certainly endeavour not to do that. He says, anyway, this has already been an essay, so I'll stop there. Take it easy, Jude. Take it easy, dude. Well, thanks for all that, Skeptic of the North. Thank you for all that. I did actually put in a text comment here, thanking him for his feedback and saying I would give him a full reply in the next comments reply video. So thank you very much. That was interesting. You took a lot of time about that. So it took a lot of time writing all that. So cheers. And thanks for watching my video as well. David Smith says here, welcome to the fun house. Be careful of the energy weapons. David has an ally now. David finally has someone backing him up in my community. I only managed an hour so far, but when Ben talks about this is David again. When Ben talks about scientific consensus being financially motivated, whether he likes it or not, he is moving the goalposts. Not really, I don't think so, David, because I'm not actually approaching a scientific query by saying, okay, if you give me this reason, I will believe you, and then afterwards say, no, he's into finance and stuff like that. I'm not doing that. I'm saying from the start there is a problem with the entire landscape of the scientific world. So that's not moving the goalposts. That's putting the goalposts in one place and leaving them there. David. He's saying that all these expert opinions and research isn't worthy of merit because money could be influencing them. It's a prime example of his fallacious thinking on these subjects. Well, that's a complete polarisation. I said that expert opinion and research should be questioned for this reason when most people don't question it for that reason. That's what I said. So that's a complete marginalisation of my words, as you often do. The fact is that big fossil fuels companies pay the best, but the conspiracy belief is all interconnected. So it's one he can't let go of. Right, David, have you watched my review of Merchants of Doubt? Because please do so, because I addressed the whole topic there. And Steve Mumbling says here underneath, Steve Mumbling has finally broken his silence. Right. You have to bear in mind that Ben seriously believes that the Queen of England was a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. Steve, what a load of rubbish. I've never said that. It's from the fifth dimension, Steve, not outer space. Just ask him. I'm sure he'll be happy to confirm that for you. Yeah. In fact, I actually said in my reply to Skeptic of the North, I do think the Queen was a shape-shifting lizard from the fifth dimension. I confirmed that this is not used as code for any human demographic, which is what we're often accused of, which is not true. They are literally lizards from the fifth dimension, and I did actually say that, and of course I do stand by that. Yes, and I explain why I think I'm happy. I'm not going to deny that I believe this when I think it's true. Some people, Richard D. Hall has this attitude actually, that if you, it's maybe best not to talk about certain things that might discredit us. He's pulled me up several times publicly for some of the things I've said, because he said, the skeptics will just take the piss out of us because of what you said. And my reply to Richard was, well, is it true or not? I think it's true, therefore I'm going to say it. And so yeah, if that's your, I don't know what point you're making there, Steve, but all you're doing is just saying that I believe this, and I even say so in the video. And that none of the Apollo missions landed on the moon, but the Nazis did back in the 40s. Correct. He's a dyed-in-the-wool tinfoil hatter. He has no interest in truth or evidence. You're wasting your time. Right. Well, Steve, you're obviously not wasting yours because you won't debate me. Come on, then, you're wasting yours by not debating me. Right, we move now on to... Right, we have here... Who's this? It's at Young Gostling. That's an interesting name. Young Gostling sounds like a Welsh word. On conspiracy theory deprogramming. Well done, Ben. I thought you surpassed the video content in your level of intelligent wisdom. Sutton was doing okay, and then completely destroyed his argument with his... If it were true, we'd be hearing about it on the news. Self-destructive comment. That wasn't for me, and I almost couldn't believe he just stabbed himself in the back so easily. Well, Yango Gosling, thanks very much. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I'm sure Skeptic is actually going to say something now about that, but I do think I did actually address the points he made as well as I could. I don't know if I completely destroyed his argument. He doesn't think so. But yeah, by the way, do you mind if SOTN? Do you mind if I call you Sutton, Skeptic of the North, just to shorten your name? And Sutton actually says here, can you point out exactly where I said this? I don't remember doing so, and I don't actually think this. So it seems a highly straw-manned version of something I said. Can you elaborate? And Yango Gosling said, not just that, but after using Greta Thunberg as proof for something, I will have to watch back and give you a timestamp. And Sutton says, I wasn't using Greta as proof of anything, merely trying to demonstrate that climate change is a widely accepted problem. Yes, it is, Sutton. A lot of people believe in it, including this poor damaged young woman. And I remember what it was like to be a little kid, and it wasn't that long ago. And these things can mess you up when you're a little kid. They really can. Yango Gosling says, listen, mate, I've just watched it again. Sorry, can't timestamp it. But it was 50-50 on Ben's video. You say, if these are well-established hoaxes, why aren't the mainstream media covering them? Come on, please. And then ask why is the Thunberg all over the TV? Right, Right. It's an important point actually to raise, and I think Sutton did sort of semi-answer it in his video. But supposing 9/11 was an inside job, how would the mainstream media cover it? I'm throwing that out there, and you can give me an answer. Anyone can give me an answer on that. And then someone called Blogger526 says, quote, "Why is the Thunberg all over the TV?" unquote. Probably because it makes fools out of climate change deniers, showing how someone so young and autistic is far more astute than most of them, and therefore makes a great story for the rest of us, which is the point of a successful MSN channel. Right, Blogger, I obviously disagree with you, because firstly, I don't think the so-called climate change deniers are on the side of the wrong. I think they're on the side of the right, and therefore I resent the way that Greta has been employed in this way, been made this mascot of the carbon cult. I really do think it's a cruel thing to do to someone like her. Right, user somebody or other says here on Conspiracy Theory pre-program, Jimmy Savile was a hospital porter. Are you always going to be on his side? What are you talking about? Do you listen to the Gas Spanner? Do you read the HPWA blog? I have covered Jimmy Savile several times. I even mentioned it on this channel, explaining how, as far as I'm concerned, he is cut out. He is removed from our tight-knit community. He has shamed us, and as far as I'm concerned, he's out. He is to be cast out for the traitor and the abuser that he is. So that answers your question, I think. And somebody says, the same person, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed masterminded 9/11. Osama bin Laden was never wanted for the attacks. Well, that's interesting, consider that he was the one on the paper that was always going on about it, was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed the person who killed him? I mean, who was the person, I think, was that the person Benazir Bhutto mentioned before she was gunned down? I don't know. It rings a bell. Okay, so we now have Gary Robinson, who says here on deprogramming. What I find interesting about guys like this is how they are so desperate to prove they are right, they will create lengthy YouTube videos and write detailed replies, as he's done on this video, in the hope of changing other people's minds. Gary, to be fair, I do that as well, don't I? It's also, Gary says, it's also quite telling that at one point in his video, he loses his temper and refers to anyone who doesn't share his opinions as an effing idiot. This is very reminiscent of the way people fight over religion, and I think that's because people who identify with the skeptic movement relate to it in the same way that religious people do to their faith and the philosophies that come with it. Now, that's a complicated subject, Gary, but you're partly right, and in fact, I do find that skeptics in general, by skeptics I mean people within the skeptic movement, are very irrational. They claim to be rational, but they're not. I mean, take the Sally Morgan issue. I cover the whole thing in my Skeptic Talk and go into details, which I know you've seen. So, yeah, I think that's overstating it, though. I think it's not quite as bad as you state it, but yeah. Gary, if it's so obvious that he's right, then why does he have to put up such a fight? The truth will always find its way to the surface. However, it never does in regards to many of the topics that he's covering. What am I doing for just take the time? I thought we're getting close to it. Because they're not as cut and dry as he would like them to be. He's also ignoring a fact that the mainstream media doesn't cover stories that conflict with the mainstream narrative, because everything is being controlled centrally. For anyone who's not convinced by the existence of top-down control, then I ask you, why was it during the recent goings-on a supermarket in England had the same modifications as all the supermarkets in Mexico, the USA, as well as the same slogans on television and radio? Yes. Safe and effective, yeah. It's right. There is the top-down control in the mainstream media. Yeah, I mean, look what's happened to people like, like, what's her name? That wonderful lady. I've forgotten her name now. But anyway, there's several reporters, people like Roseanne Barr, Lawrence Fox. There's several others who with the mainstream. I'm thinking of that South African lady who used to be on mainstream news, and now she's like one of us. I can't remember her name now. It'll come to me. I can only assume that skeptics are frightened of confronting the truth, So they fight to uphold a more comfortable reality and do so with big words and a condescending tone of voice. Well, some of them do have a condescending tone of voice. Not Sutton, but some of them do. Sutton, I think, seems to be quite reasonable and pleasant, as skeptics go. He's sort of Mick West type. Chris French I quite like. I think he's all right. David Smith says, not how skepticism works, mate. It's simply asking for good evidence. Oh, no, it doesn't, David. It does not. I've explained many times why I don't think that's the case. David, it specifically goes against the idea of being cult-like. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, David. David, by definition, if it was how you suggest, you would cease to be a skeptic. That's why Ben's talks are a good resource. Right. Now, it's interesting you said that, David, because your third and fourth sentence kind of contradict what you said in the first two. If it was how you suggest, you would cease to be a skeptic. You certainly would cease to be a skeptic by their definition of themselves. If you remember from my skeptic talk, that is apportioning all claims to valid evidence, etc., pitfalls of human reason, all that self-definition. You wouldn't be one of those anymore, but you would be the second definition, the real definition. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood you. That's why Ben's talks aren't a good resource. Right, you say they're not a good resource. That makes more sense, David, because I didn't think you were going to suddenly suggest that my talks are good resources. But I think they are, because I do explain the difference between the two definitions of a skeptic. That is, the one they give themselves and the one that comes from the outside. It's actually very difficult to see your own culture as an outsider would see it. I know that people in this country, the United Kingdom, don't really pay much attention to foreign commentary on our politics and on our culture. But if you do, it's quite eye-opening, actually. For example, the way the Chinese described us when they first met us it wasn't until probably the 17th or 18th century that China really became international, and they met with people like us, and they said that we have a grim look about us, untidy hair, an unpleasant smell, we're arrogant and things like that. They're talking about the British. Yeah, David Smith also adds here, dogmatism is what you describe, not skepticism. Yes, but David, my point in my skeptic talks, which I think are a good resource, is that a lot of the skeptic movement, the society, the tribe, is dogmatic. And Skeptic of the North comes in back again. He says, again, a very odd comment. My videos are about 20 to 25 minutes long on average. Yeah, I mean, Sutton's videos, they tend to be like in segments. Yeah, but they are not, they're much shorter than mine, yeah. It's almost like you never saw an 8-hour David Icke lecture. Touché. Actually, some of David's lectures go on for 12 hours. I've been in the audience for some of them, yeah. And yes, my comment was relatively long because I'm responding to a 4-hour video, funnily enough. That's fair enough, yes. Also, when did I lose my temper and call people an effing idiot? I'm sorry, dude. This has never been said anywhere in my series. I would never say this. Maybe, I don't remember Sutton saying that quote. No, I don't remember him saying that. I think it's rather telling that this is about the third comment that quotes me saying something that I've never said or attributing a view to me that I've never expressed. It's almost like people hear what they want to hear and ignore everything that I said. Lol, bizarre. Right, and that's the end of that particular discussion. David doesn't come back. Or neither does Gary. Same video user. Oh, that's the end of an hour. Alright, okay guys, so that's the end of an hour. We'll be back with... we are on hour number 4 coming up. Okay, they're back for hour number 4. I think it'll probably be the last one, although, speak too soon and stuff like that. User says, David Bellamy was working for Shell Oil when he denied global warming. Evidence, please? Because if that's true, then that would be a black mark against him, wouldn't it? User says, 19 guys with box cutters. Why didn't you mention passengers on the flights were told by the hijackers there was a bomb on the plane, and there's a recording of this. All right, is there a recording of this where? Oh, is it the phone call? Is it this phone call? Because some of the phone calls were dodgy, the fact that they phoned from mobile phones and stuff like that, and there was the reverse charges call on the seatback phone. But anyway, I didn't mention that because the only reason I didn't mention it, user, is because it didn't come up in the proceedings. But it's these. I have mentioned it elsewhere, and they were 19 guys with box cutters. Bear in mind what a box cutter is. Because British people might think we're referring to some kind of axe. No, a box cutter is what we call a Stanley knife. Or in other words, or what you might call these days, a Jane Stanley knife. User says here on same video, the chances of winning the lottery this week remain the same if you won last week or the last, however many weeks in a row. Your idea is that the odds are raised by the power of how many times you've won in a row is nonsense. No, it's not. No, it's not. If you win, you win the lottery. The chances of winning the lottery this week are 13 million to 1. But if the chances of you winning it 5 weeks in a row are 13 million to 1 raised to the power of 5, they are. You can't say so. What if? Okay, the odds of winning. It's like the odds of tossing a coin and getting heads is 50-50, heads or tails is 50-50. The answer. So are you honestly saying that the odds of tossing 100 coins and getting 100 heads is 50-50? Are you saying that? Because if you are, you have no understanding of statistics at all. All right. The invasion of Rudloe Manor. This is my most recent video, which is actually an entire week ago, and I've got nearly a week. I've got to apologise for that, guys. I've been quiet. Darren Retro says 1. In other words, first. Well done. Tinfoil hat on its way. Gary Robinson says, fuck lol. And then we have Knowles Miles. Same old shit, Ben. Knowles Miles. I think that's Marley Pumpkin, isn't it? Who's back again. Marley Pumpkin has sent me a number of emails, which are as incoherent as his or her comments. There you go. Marley, I can't reply to your emails if you're just going to say things that I don't make any sense. Anyway. So Gary says, have you not yet had the honour of winning first place tinfoil hats? No, they haven't. Popcorn Boxing says, second. Well done. Silver tinfoil hat on its way to you. Darren Retro gets the gold one. And on Invasion of Rudloe Manor, Popcorn Boxing. Wow, I think it's something sensitive going on at Rudloe. Why the hell would there be a privacy complaint at that spooky old building? Yeah, good point. Good point, but I mean, it hasn't even been sustained. I mean, I'll just double check. I'm going to check Gmail now. But it's been now almost 2 weeks, and I've heard nothing more from it. So I mean, I have to assume. Do I speak too soon? A tempting fate here. Let's just see. I haven't heard a damn thing. Indeed, I'm looking now at my inbox, and there's nothing there. Nothing there at all. So. I've heard now if YouTube are hesitating for an entire fortnight before taking action against one of their content creators, there's probably nothing to take action against. And Knowles Miles said, Hanker Faye and the family are all over the place, and the family are all over the world. Right, I've got no idea who Hanker Faye is. I know Siobhan Faye, she's a singer and a bit of hot stuff, but Hanker Faye, never heard of her. Or him. Angela Kenyon says exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think maybe I don't know if they're replying to. Oh, they're replying to Angela Kane. Angela Kenyon knows who these people are. All right. Conspiracy theory deprogramming. TKUK says here. Oh, Ben, you really do try your hardest to see the other side of the argument. I do, TK. Yeah, I think that's wise. You are such a perfect individual and never make mistakes ever. Are you saying that? I think you're being sarcastic, and yeah, but I'm actually not. I do make mistakes. He carries on. If you ever want evidence that you are delusional, just watch this video of yours called Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming. All right, okay. So if you think I've made a mistake, explain what my mistakes are. Because if I'm delusional, surely I've made some mistakes, have I? No, we've got 3 sentences here, and that's it. Right, the invasion of Rudloe Manor. We have South Coast Tricky. Hey, South Coast Tricky, how you doing? Why would the royal elite want to leave their existing comfortable homes and affluent and privileged lives and go and live in a bunker, only to emerge at a later date to find that the country razed to the ground and most of the people dead? I think because they have this idea that whatever's happening, whether it's something planned or whether it's something that just might happen accidentally, like a volcanic eruption or asteroid impact or something, solar flare, whether it's planned or not, they believe that they can come out and then create their new world order from the ashes of what's been left behind. It's the Ordo ab Chao from the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. Scottish Rite Freemasonry 33rd degree. That's their motto. South Coast Streaking continues. That would leave them in a very hostile environment. How about food, water and energy, infrastructure, etc. to be sourced and employees recruited? And from where? Right. Energy, free energy, obviously. Food, water. Once you've got the energy problems sorted, you have the food. Infrastructure is only needed for say cities and stuff like that, where something smaller doesn't need that kind of infrastructure. Employees recruited, well, there's robots. Also, how would they find staff such as doctors, nurses, engineers, domestics, police, etc. to serve them and their every wish, both at home and out and about? Right, that's an interesting point, which I think I'll bring up in the future, because believe it or not, I'm going to cover this idea of gated communities and bunkers for the elite. I think it needs an article and a video or something, yeah. Right, Ben Goes on Tour Part 1 of 2. Stephen Truthseeker, ? Underground bases? Yes, indeed, there are some there. Right, Shelley Northwest says on deprogramming. What happens when science halls and peer-reviewed papers are staffed by little more than WEF goons and Fauci clones? Peer reviews are so pre-1984. There's already a dragnet laid that will skew scientific findings, and from here on out. And those buildings, the cage, aren't going to reveal what can be used to overthrow them. Is the control system not even being checked now? Suggesting people should be defaulting to peer-reviewed papers is from an era long past. Where's the actual checking of the control system? Who, why, what? You put it very well there, Shelley. Yeah, you seem to be quite a poet when it comes to these things. David Smith says, peer review. The clue is in the name, Shelley. Any scientist wanting to be rich and famous could expose issues and show the problem with something. It's been done before and it'll likely continue to happen as improvements are made and greater knowledge is discovered. In the meantime, enjoy what it gives us. Some amazing technology that allows people to make videos and comments. All right, well, first of all, do you really think a scientist wanting to be rich and famous may not necessarily achieve that by exposing a problem with something, for reasons I've explained. As for your last sentence, that's that silly little piece of moral blackmail that David Colquhoun does. Oh, people who complain about science all the time, but they enjoy the benefits of science because they write blogs on computers made by science, as if that's so polarising. And once again, you're marginalising us. Oh, these woo-woos, they question 9/11. So they're against all science and technology. Why don't they just go and live in the Stone Age then? Oh, that's a silly comment, David. Very silly. Sutton says here, well, it's a simple question. What's the alternative? Okay, submitting findings and asking scientists to replicate your studies, criticise your work, with the goal of finding an answer that withstands scrutiny? Old news? So passé? Whatever you're saying here. Okay, cool. What's the alternative then? How do we best find out how objectively something is true? How true something is? A scientist just publishes with something with no scrutiny. Just publishes it. Don't let scientists replicate your findings. Don't let people scrutinise or follow up your research. Doesn't matter about sample sizes. Doesn't matter about the quality of your research. Publish it in an online journal that allows random, easy essay generators to be published. Like Peter Boghossian, yeah? Submit it to people who've never stepped foot in a laboratory, but armchair philosophise about it online. What new revolutionary alternative are you proposing that is better than the current method? Seriously, I'm genuinely interested. It's a fair question, Sutton, and I think what Shelley is saying here, I mean, she uses different kind of language to me, and she tends to be more sort of emotional than me on these sorts of matters. Is that she's making kind of the same point that I was, where peer review is not. It's in an ideal world it would be exactly what you say it is, and I wish we lived in that kind of world where science could draw these perfect circles of reason and logic and rationality, completely free from the pressures of political and economic bias. But we don't live in that world, and for that reason. This is what Shelley means by pre-1984 and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, in an ideal world that would be the ideal way to go forward. Yeah. Blogger says here, Perhaps one of the most bizarre comments on Ben's channel I've seen. Papers that aren't peer-reviewed are worthless. I or anyone else can make up any scientific claim as fact or as fact otherwise. We would have no ability to share research, as it would all be completely unprovable and unreliable. We would be descending into the dark ages of hearsay. No, and you see, again, I've already addressed that point. It's actually worth... Can I recommend to Sotten, to Blogger, to Shelley, and to David... that on YouTube there's something called BBC Horizon, an experiment to save the world. Because it's about this. It's about a scientist who comes up with an idea. It's demolished by peer review. He revises it. It's peer reviewed again, and eventually the BBC team gets the endeavour to get to the bottom of it. It's worth watching because obviously I have my own opinions about what the actual relevance of it, but it gives you a good idea of the kind of process we're talking about here. I mean, it's the actual conclusion. I think it actually is a piece of propaganda and it's falsified, but it's the method. It just gives you an idea of the methodology and things like that. Invasion of Rudloe Manor, Keith Smith. It's only to be expected that the Illuminati are monitoring your activity. I'm sure they are. I mean, I'd be a bit put out if they weren't, to be honest. Invasion of Rudloe Manor, Gary Robinson. Ben, mate, do you think it's possible that a creature who lives under a bridge saw your RM video as an opportunity to get you into trouble with YouTube? Your Rudloe Manor video as an opportunity to get you into trouble with YouTube. Yes, the creature who lives under a bridge. I know what you mean. Yeah, the troll. Yeah, yes, I do, Gary. I think that's a possibility. My point being that I can't see anyone in authority watching your video and deciding to fill out a complaint form on YouTube. I just don't think they would bother. Cheers. Yeah, I think what happened was a troll probably contacted the property management company and said, please, could you, please, for me, do it for me. And I explain in the video, yeah. And Angela Kenyon says, not authority, as has been programmed to interpret as other eyes are watching constantly, he's over the target. It could be, Angela, yeah. Emlyn-Jones, hey Rhiannon, how you doing, darling? You okay? What is the music at the start of the video? It's brilliant. All right, it's actually by I can't remember what the title is, but it's by a band called Tritachyon. It's a free attribution license. You get it from the YouTube audio library. Yeah. I thought you might have trouble for your Invasion of Rudloe scene. I was actually quite anxious watching it and waiting for you to get carted off in a black van. Maybe it was the royal family who've complained, giving you their images, filming their image in the window. Oh, from those posters? Well, why put them in the window with an open gate? Rhiannon continues. How these people break into abandoned houses and film for hours and get away with it, I have no idea. Maybe it depends on your professed political opinions, what your professed political opinions are. It's nice to see your room from a different angle. That bookcase needs the attention of a professional librarian. It does, actually. I've actually reorganised it since I made the video, but yeah. Yeah, I need to put things in order and stuff like that. There's a big pile here. I probably need some more shelves at some point. But, it's interesting that... people who break into abandoned houses, the urbexers like Matthew Williams, yeah. Maybe you just have to have a very loud voice and a harsh Welsh accent and a big Siberian husky at your side. Thanks, Rhiannon, for that. Same video, InsureTech says they don't like anyone filming around Corsham. MW got followed and stopped after visiting there, and AB got stopped by armed police last year and recently by three Karens. Right, Matthew Williams, I don't know who you mean by AB, but Matthew Williams he has been harassed around that area, especially the gate where you go in and there's the active base. AB, don't know who that is, but yeah, you sometimes do get some Karens coming up to you. Sometimes it's people, you just basically office women coming out and saying, don't do that, don't film there. But sometimes it is actually armed police, yeah. Same video, Tessa says, I hope you're safe from that explosion at the recycle plant. Started by lightning? Be careful, Ben. Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, I mean, it's actually a long way from me. I did hear it. It's actually in Yarnton, which is a few miles north of Oxford. I heard the explosion. I thought it was thunder, but then I thought, that sounds like weird thunder. Is that really thunder? I remember thinking that at the time, and then when I found out when the explosion took place, I remembered it was 7:21 p.m. It must have been a very big explosion to have been heard from as far away as I am. I'm in southeast Oxford, in Cowley, and indeed it was. It destroyed most of the actual biogas facility, and luckily the place was empty, so no one was hurt. So good. Same video, Knowles Marles said, "I'm back, Ben." I know, Knowles. I must say about the explosion, some people said, "Are you sure it wasn't a UFO crash?" And I thought, no. There's no evidence to suggest it's anything other than it appears to be. There's even film of the explosion. Knowles Marles, "I'm back, Ben Emlyn." I know, Marley, I know you are. And Knowles says, "Jupiter Returns." Were you Jupiter Returns, actually? Because Jupiter Returns is a person I know who used to post on my channel. Straw Person says here on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming, "Safe and effective is enough for me to know something ain't right. if others want to roll their eyes and sleeves up, it's not my problem, is it?" Well, unfortunately, you can't control what other people do. And we're talking about members of my family have had this medical treatment. Not my daughter, thank God, but other members of my family have had it done. Yeah, the safe and effective seems... You see, this is why I believe newsreaders get a script, like Jane Stanley. Because the term safe and effective and many other little buzzwords like that, dangerous misinformation, phrases like that, these were repeated by newsreaders everywhere. They must be having some kind of script. Right, Red-Pilled Addict. Red-Pilled Picked, that's a good name, says on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming, "As a very young person back then, I swallowed the Oswald story, but the Jack Ruby part smelled off to me." Yeah. It's very convenient, that, wasn't it? 2 days later, Oswald gets killed by Jack Ruby. He was out taking his dog for a walk, and then he says, "I'll stop here for a moment." He left his dog in the car. Went in and just shot Oswald as he came out. It took about 5 years later for me to find out about his connections to organised crime, though being a small-time nightclub owner, his motives never made sense to me. No, he said, "Oh, he killed my president." Well, nonsense. And of course, Ruby himself died of natural causes, just a couple of years later in jail when he was on death row. User said, "The silly voice isn't necessary, it grinds my ears. I could only stand it up to 1022 and stopped watching it. Not good for the algorithm." User, I think the problems I have with algorithms is kind of a fait accompli since my shadow banning. And then we have Steve Mumbling, who says here on Conspiracy Theory Deprogramming, If the JFK assassination was organised by the government or a government department, someone would have shot Trump by now." Well, not if Trump had enough people sort of protecting him. Well, now finally, I put up this notice comment last night. I don't know why exactly I put this up. Basically, it was a suggestion because I said I'm not going to be doing a roving review of Dune Part 2, which comes out in a couple of months. Because the first one didn't impress me, and there was something much better, which is David Lynch's fantastic adaptation of Dune. Maybe we could do a watch party for that. And Insure Tuck says, "How about Monsters of California?" Oh right, I know that's a documentary about Bigfoot and things, isn't it? Yeah. And then Dark Corners UK says, "Although Dune is perhaps the worst movie in Lynch's back catalogue, strike that, second worst after Inland Empire, I would enjoy hearing you talk about it." Yeah, I don't agree with you, and I love David Lynch. Apart from, obviously, Eraserhead I didn't understand. That's his first movie, and it's very abstract. I don't think you're meant to understand it, but yeah. So, that's the end of YouTube. I'm now going to go to BitChute, and of course I'm going to go through my original. Of course, first things first, I'm going to go through everything that I uploaded, everything I posted since the last one. Then we'll do the list. Here we go, BitChute. Reply to comments 83. Oh, I've got lots here. Oh, Hugo Rune is up here. All right, Shelley of the Red. First of all,
Conspiracy.
Right. Sorry.
Government cover-ups.
Whenever you open a page, it plays automatically. Right. Who Shelley says here. Ben from BitChute Land. I'm glad you're on there too, Shelley. So I'm not a huge fan of any of the stuff. It generally seems to be a Pied Piper thing to get populists to stand down as the troops roll in. However, I caught that clip of Jan Halper-Haynes, one of Trump's old staffers, doing an interview in Britain for Stephen and Ellie, which has thrown me more than a little. Right. I've not actually seen this, Shelley, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. In it, Mrs. Hayes tactfully, yet pointedly, brings up what is definitely a legit strategy that goes straight over the head of the snake trying to build their NWO, the Davos crown, and European banking families. Her comments also make it rather obvious that Trump is behind the 17th letter group, but she mentions that back in 2018 Trump drew up some extensive executive order to make it illegal for anyone to assume the US presidency under our 1871 post-Civil War treaty with the bankers and JP Morgan, etc. That made the USA a corporation, so supplanting all foundations the USA was founded on. Because of that treaty, we could be completely ruled by Davos, and the people's never done, zero true representation. This treaty, of course, is what opened the door to Davos sending in their Nazis and Marxists and gutting the country. Same identical powers and gutting around the globe, which the BRICS has formed to get out from under, etc. Trump wasn't just opposing a few wars then and maintaining workable relations with other nations. He was literally trying legally to undo the Federal Reserve and the USA as a corporation. This is exactly what JFK and the Russian Tsar Nicholas II were attempting when the bankers had them murdered. Nicholas II for refusing the banks in. Yeah, funny enough, it's interesting that the when you look at the Bolshevik Revolution and the money, the foreign money going into it, of course it was the Bolsheviks who, a year after coming to power, or less than a year, shot the former king and all his family in the cellar in Yekaterinburg. Needless to say, that indeed is one huge plan. If Trump dissolved the corporation of the US, that would enable the US finally to help other nations out of the World Bank system, rising evil to the top constantly, including human and drug trafficking. The bankers run using US military and the EU powers, etc. Plus Davos doesn't have a real military other than Blackwater, and the running groups running coups like in Ukraine, always using other people or the US military for their agendas. Yeah, of course, yeah. They don't risk themselves, do they? Anyway, did you catch this interview? No, but maybe you got a link here, so yeah, I'll check that out. And it's actually a bit odd that now most Americans see what the Democratic Party is capable of, and they are all but hated, except for those receiving special minority and other perks for singing on with their destruction. Obviously, people have massively woken up watching all this. But what are your thoughts about this having been planned versus it happening anyway when this much corruption is attempted? Do you feel this was planned? Because remove that clamp down power coming from a foreign body, and the American people would instantly say no more, not ever again, and the Ron Paul types will be brought in. Thanks for reading and your thoughts on the plan. Shelley, that's interesting. I haven't seen the interview you do post... oh, here's the interview. Right, you do post the interview. Thank you very much. I'll watch it and let you know. But, I plan to cover this subject in detail closer to next November's election in the United States. But, yeah, I mean, I really hope Trump wins. I really do. And, yeah, I will. Shelley says, Body Language Ghost also did a review on Mrs. Hayes' body language, finds her hand chopping and leaning in, all indicative of the person telling their deepest truth. Also, she wants people to catch on. Frankly, I would have been a bit worried my plane ride home might not be so good. Here's a further breakdown of what Trump said to have been working on 3 executive orders with Rob Cunningham. I'm still looking at this myself. Well, thanks, Shelley. I'll look at both those things. As for, body language is a bit of a dubious science in my view, but I'll check out the original video, certainly, and the others, possibly. Hugo Rune says, aha! Hugo Rune, I wonder why you were quiet on YouTube. Me stoned is me posting on this channel. Not sure how to take that. Well, that's what you do, mate. Meet up near me, says Hugo. Please, not a good idea. I'm totally housebound and have nurses visiting 3 times a week to change dressings. I honestly couldn't make it, so please do not consider me. Thanks for the thought. Oh, Hugo, I'm sorry, mate, but okay, we'll do. Hugo, climate change, utter bollocks, I agree. Coke, as in cocaine. Memories of my working life around the world. Seriously bad for the nostrils. Cannabis, now serious medication. 0 deaths. Yeah, I don't know if you tried the former, Hugo. I never have. Hugo, thank you. We'll rewatch before I comment. Thank you. Just eating a tin of tuna. A tin of tuna? Pussy. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. We'll rewatch Wacky Backy, lol. 154 onwards. Tears in my eyes. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. I understand you now. Anglo-Saxon. We'll have to rewatch later. I think that's what I said about the Anglo-Saxon Celtic thing, yeah. PGLF on your t-shirt. What is it? Programmable generated life form. You should watch the Summer Sizzler video I did. Reply the thing with the Porter's Poets. Hugo, skinning up while watching this, so relaxing, thanks. 5 minutes now. 4 hours of watching in the evening, many thanks. You're welcome, Hugo, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's all the comments on that one. Now, St Helena Airport, Cotland Island. Anton McNamara says, the small Orkney island of Burray was connected to two much larger islands by a chain of causeways built during World War II to act as a barrier to German U-boats. The island was and still is populated. I don't know how the causeways have affected the population, but I can imagine they find it easier to get supplies from larger islands when you don't have to rely on a ferry. At the same time, it will have made them more dependent on their cars and disincentivised anyone local from setting up a shop. Yes, Anton, yes, exactly. This is the situation with St Helena, although the islands are not quite as remote. I've been watching, what's her name? Ruth Aisling, the travel vlogger. She's up in the Orkneys right now in her camper van. And it's a beautiful place, it really is. But I'd hate to see it ruined, I really would. Right, conspiracy theory deprogramming. So I have to wait for it because you always get a play function the moment the page loads. Right, Cosmic Claire says, my experience at the 100th Monkey Camp was an MK Ultra setup and led me to breaking the programming. See my book. Right, yes, this is Waking the Monkey by Claire Ray Randall. Do check that out. I've read it, very interesting. Woden20 says here, does he explain the large number of conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, like MK Ultra, Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove, Operation Northwoods? Right, yes, now he doesn't mention Operation Northwoods, which I was disappointed. I actually asked at one point, is he going to mention Operation Northwoods? Because, of course, that's a bit of a smoking gun, isn't it? And he doesn't mention MK Ultra. He did mention the Tuskegee experiments, which was live human experimentation, which, they wouldn't do that. They have! But he's weird because he seems to understand this happened, but doesn't seem to be able to install that into his worldview. Democracy only needs the minds of the sheep to work for them. Yeah, democracy is just a more crafty form of dictatorship, Woden. I'm someone with a rational mind, so I can see and hear their manipulations, lol. Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, some skeptics think that, even though they accept there's some reality behind conspiracies. Shelley of the Red says, no way. And finally, the invasion of Rudloe Manor. So, no comments. Right, that's BitChute over with. Now on to Odyssey. Oh, no. Don't forget, Ben, don't forget. You go through the list. I'm going to try and find, people commenting on other videos that weren't uploaded since then, so yeah. Jeremy Poole. I still follow. Jeremy Poole is uploading a lot lately. He's good. He's another YouTuber I recommend. No, he's banned from YouTube. BitShooter. The Crow House is Max Egan's. I can't watch Sandman Megtow anymore. He's so bloody depressing. You see, I mean, maybe I should stop bloody subbing to the Megtows, because I've done my own video, Am I a Megtow? And I just said that I'm not a Megtow, and I find Megtows are very bitter. They have this very bitter, cynical, very dark and misanthropic vision of an entire half of the human population. And despite the fact they want to be men going their own way, they spend all their time sitting around moaning about women. Okay, right. We have now we have Razavihari, an old one now. Razavihari, the Ballanist. Right. You don't seem to be getting okay. Well, we don't seem to be getting a start there. Right, what do we have now? We have a thread here from the Ballanist. Right. The Ballanist says here. But you know you only have to watch 1 hour of the video. Yes. Lol. I don't know how silly that's. If you don't know how silly that sounds, well, I don't know what to tell you. And you found time to reply to me here twice, but somehow showing the link if you posted it. I'm not the only one who would have been interested. Or explaining simple facts. I no longer have it. I've got thousands of videos to plough through to find it. Or I've posted it here. Link is not complicated. Especially as it's quite pertinent 10 years on. But if you don't like showing people you were ahead of the curve some time ago, well, maybe I'll post it for you. But it's under protest. Oh, well, go ahead then. And I've replied here, thanks for your comment, it'll be answered approximately in the 4th hour of the coming comments reply video. But the Ballinist, I think you want me to somehow give you special treatment and go spend half an hour dealing with just you and pandering to your needs and your desires. No. You're one of thousands of viewers and commenters on my channel. You have to do a bit of work yourself. I give text replies to certain people at my discretion, and I did reply to you as a text reply in the previous cycle at my discretion, and I've done so. I have not done so again for the same reason. Right, new comment. Now this is the same video, but it's the Ballinist. But where is it? Right, I can't see where this is actually. That Ballinist actually somehow. Okay, I can't see the new comment there. Right. Let's keep going down. All right. Oh, this is Hugo Rune. Oh, reply to comments 82. Right. All right. This is on the previous reply to comments. So I'll now go to this one because it's not the last one. This is the one before. Come on in. Right. I'll just while that's happening, I'll just refill the old dragon juice. I don't know why suddenly I'm not getting the play. Maybe it's because I'm clicking on comments links, on comment notification links. So there may be it. A bit more dragon juice, I think, my friends. A bit more of this old stuff. Yeah. Yeah, let's have some more of that. Right. There we go. Yeah, nice. But just enough. Just enough for one more glass. Alright, yeah. Okay. Right, Hugo. Fantastic ending, massive smiles on my face, massive respect. Thank you, Hugo. Thank you, I'm glad you like that. Love the Central Africa fact, thank you. I worked in Angola long ago, thanks for the memory. Neptune returns, damn my mental probes, must search history. Yeah, he's a user, someone who sometimes posts. German and Dutch, again, thanks for the memory. I spoke both in the past, my army days. Heel goed! Berlitz, again, thanks for the memory. Quatermass and the Pit, thanks for the memory. Pink Floyd, I'm laughing, memories. The drugs joke, nice one. Still skinning up here, very happy enjoying this. 3 foxes, thank you, Ben, they were in my garden. I need to grind some more weed, this gives me such pleasure while watching this. Thanks, Ben, bigger grin. Of course I'll be skinning up while watching this, filling my box. 5 in there, big grin. I like this Darth Vader stuff. And Dutch, thank you. Thank you, Ben, watching. Looking forward to the whole sitting, grin. Oh, Hugo, you're very welcome. I'm really glad you enjoyed reply to comments 82. I didn't realise you hadn't seen it yet. Thank you. And that is it. That's it. So you know what to do. I go to the top here, and I click mark all as read. There we are. And delete all. There we go. That's BitChute done. And now on to Odyssey. Now, as you know, I know what to do now with notifications. I simply go to the notifications list, and I select, rather than all, I select comments. Right. Claire Core says secular Quranism, and hang on, that's on another video. Right, aerial phenomena live stream. Right. Who have we here? This is an old one. Right, just wait for the. I'm just gonna click pause when it starts playing, as usual. Right. This is Xeonal Satanism. That's an interesting name. Who says? Okay, I've got to put a few random things in here because you know what bloody. You know what damn. You know what. Yeah, they don't let you post the same comment too often. I know with very Rumble, it's the entire platform. Here, it's just one thread. Aliens do not exist, and although the children may have seen something that looked very real, I have no doubt they have technology to create such illusions. CERN, DARPA, HARP have discovered how to manipulate matter. manipulate matter, defeat gravity, and affect the biosphere and our bioelectric physiology with very real consequences. This means they have highly advanced crafts with capability to project lifelike holographic images into our minds as hallucinogenic or altered visions. This is precisely why most of these children describe similar but different visions. It happened in the 50s over the WH and in Phoenix all over the world, the White House, and Phoenix all over the world, where it could be displayed to fool a mass of people. They experimented with tests against humanity, and for a while they didn't want to reveal the high-level operations. So they denied any reports, but as their methods improved, they conducted even more experiments until they could no longer deny it, except go along with the hoax. They have the ability to project thoughts, control emotions, and cause targeted sickness or death. At HARP, also a device called Shiva with a large capacitor bank that stores anomalous plasma energy. Their occult celebration videos were acknowledging the fact they have unlocked powerful new technologies that gives the elites a formidable weapon to act as gods via electromagnetic manipulation. This is what the Shiva ritual at CERN was all about. It is dangerous and satanic. They can cause natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, storms more with accuracy. If the global elite choose, and I'm almost certain they will, they can present a doomsday scenario that utilizes ultra-high-tech machinery that defeats gravity and is armed with deadly plasma weaponry, whether disguised as an alien attack or World War III. You can believe in something there's absolutely no evidence for, like a virus story, or you can do math. Don't be fooled. They are all in on it. Right. You bring up a lot of points here. Zional statism. Satanism, sorry. Aliens do exist, and even though what you said about CERN, HARP, the secret space program, and mind control is true, this does not explain the entire UFO phenomenon at all. The Washington invasion was interesting because that happened in 1952, before all this technology was available, which I think it does seem to have been some kind of genuine phenomenon. The Phoenix Lights, same thing. That was more recent, 1997. And the thing to do with CERN, though, I've done an entire video on CERN. I don't know if you saw it, but the Shiva thing at CERN was weird. Yeah, and they have that statue, and you have that weird ritual that took place there. And of course, they can cause these natural disasters. I've done. If you watch my heat wave live stream from last year, I talk about weather weaponry, things like that. Now, I do think, I can only say so much on YouTube, but I do think that the disease, the C-word disease, exists, but it doesn't justify the reaction from the government to it. But anyway, thanks. That's an interesting comment. Thank you very much for all that. Shelley of the Reds says here, oh, hang on, what's going on? Come on, I want to open a new tab. This is reply to comments 82. This is the one before last. We're now on 84. I'm trying to. It won't. I can't hit pause as it plays. Right.
Earth mist.
And I have to press play. Okay. Shelley of the Reds says. Oh, I've already replied to that one. Oh, I've replied to those. Right. That was 1 month ago. Right. So that's all of. There was only one comment on Odyssey I needed to look at. Thanks. Now we're on to Rumble. As always, I'll go through I actually do have a comment on some old videos on Rumble, which I've made a note of because I do get an email notification that doesn't appear on Rumble itself. But we'll just go through the most recent videos first. Apple Lily says fascinating, and I'll say thanks. I'll just write here as a text. Thanks, Apple Lily. Glad you enjoyed this new video. So many thanks to Apple Lily for that. So that's that. Right, now St Helena Airport, Cotland Island. No comments. I get far fewer on Rumble than I do elsewhere. A conspiracy theory deprogramming. No comments. And finally, reply to comments 83. No comments. Right, I'm now gonna go to notifications for Rumble because I do have another comment from Apple Lily. I actually made a note of it on here actually, so come on. I'll just wait for my computer to catch up. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so how many have I got? I've just got the one, I think. Yes. It is on St Helena Airport, The Darkness Rises. So, right, so I'll have to go to the, to find that, I'll have to go to the HPANWO Radio blog, because again, finding your own content on the content list on Rumble is very difficult. It's something they need to work on, I think. I don't want to go to the bloody portal, Ben. That's the thing to do. Go to the damn portal. That's what portals are for. St Helena Airport portal. Right, HPANWO TV. The Darkness Rises. So there we are. Go to that. Now we'll go to Rumble on here. Apple Lily says here, I've already put a text comment reply to Apple Lily. Okay, it's got to freeze up on the browser. Let's check that's working. So it'll come unstuck soon. It's just as I said, this when I got my new PC up and running, this sort of thing won't happen. Right. I just say thanks, Apple Lily. Glad you enjoyed it. So and I'll put a comments reply thing here. So Apple Lily can then watch the. She can then watch the watch this particular video as well. She'll know that I actually put a comment on there. So thanks, Apple Lily, for that. That's a nice name, Apple Lily. I love that. Right, so that's Rumble. I'll just go to notifications. I think probably be a good idea. Just double check Rumble notifications, and then we'll go back to YouTube and just see if I've had any. Just check the recent notifications for comments that I've had, and while I've been actually producing production of this particular video. So I'm just waiting for this browser to catch up, as always. Which is slow. It's slow. Yeah, my new PC is really cool. Actually, it's just it costs like £600, but it's like it's actually quite cheap. But I'm gonna have to add some things. Like I'm gonna have to get a new license for Microsoft Office, I think, because it's like I tried installing my original installation disk, which I used like ages ago, 20 years ago, don't work. Oh, I can't. The notifications are not coming up. I'm right. Okay. Right, there we go. It's working now. So let's see what we have here. Searching. Right. Okay, right, Charlie Ward show. Right, oh, this is on Charlie Ward's video. He said, thanks for your feedback. You can contact me. All right, Charlie, I'll get in touch. All right, mate. I don't know why Charlie Ward wants to talk to me. I think it's just a template thing, actually. You are currently subscribed to Jordan Sather, to Stefan Molyneux, to Steve Kirsch, Russell Brand. Oh, no, that's the title, not the person. Julie Green Ministries, Il Donaldo Trumpo, Leak Project. And we have here Apple Lily on Invasion of Radlow Manor. Let's go back a bit further to Wednesday the 5th. Right, so let's go back. I need to go back to the 1st of October, I think. Just double checking. I think I do make a note of any comments I get on Rumble. I always make a note of them, but just checking. Right, okay, we're now, I think, over there. Right, okay. So I will just go now to YouTube. One more thing to do. I go to YouTube and I check notifications, because some people may have posted comments while I have been making this video. So I'm quite interested to see if any of them, are there. So, okay, so right, where are we now? Okay. Okay, right. So it's just I'm just waiting for the browser to catch up. I'm not a screen share, am I? No. Oh, the Crafty Nihilist has gone to Avebury. All right, I'll have to watch that later. Okay, so notifications. Gary Robinson says here, Ben, mate, don't be jealous, but I met up with Jam Noise 72 this afternoon. We had a bit of garage rave up. Cheers. Hey, Gary, I'm jealous? That's absolutely fine with me. You knock yourselves out here. Well, not literally, but have a good time. Have a good time. Going back down here. Right, bloody blast. Okay, we're nearly there. Alright, what's this? Okay, so that's it. Oh, the Crafty Nihilist has a new video about people. Yeah, oh great. People meeting up. Alright then, guys. So that is it. That is the end of this reply to comments video. The 84th one. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's left comments. There's been some really good, long, detailed ones in this particular cycle. So please do keep them coming. Next video will be... I may be a bit quiet for the next week or so, and the reason is because I'm preparing for my talk next Monday evening. No, sorry, not this Monday coming, the Monday after. That is the 16th, at the East Anglia UFO Group. If you want to go to eaufo.co.uk and you'll find details of my talk there. You get a chance to meet me. I'll get a copy of my book, which I'll sign, and things like that. So please do get to that if you can. In the meantime, I'm going to be busy preparing, because I've got to prepare a completely new talk. So I'm going to be very busy doing that. So things may be a bit quiet, but I'll get a video in before then. Don't worry. I may get some kind of live stream about something. In the meantime, I may do an introduction to the watch party for the David Lynch June. We'll see about that. But anyway, thank you very much for all those comments. All of them entertaining. Even some of the abusive ones were quite funny. So, and of course, there's been a lot of really heartfelt, detailed ones. I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who watches me, everyone who comments. Please do continue to check out this channel. If you're new to the channel, there's a lot of old videos you can watch too. So thank you everyone for watching HPANWO TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.
Conspiracies, government cover-ups, Earth mysteries, monster cryptids, psyops, saucers and black triangles, HPANWO.